Hi, everyone. So glad you guys could make it here tonight. Sorry, I'm a couple seconds late. Opening up a bottle of water. Give me 1 second here. So thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. And I saw that we had some people pop in early. So Rob over at Curmudgeon Inn, he is off filming for a moment. So he'll be joining us shortly. And Billy Bob, I saw you popped in. Howdy, howdy. And Brook Trout. Unfortunately, I don't think there was anybody in here when you were here earlier, but Brook Trout says that she or he, I'm sorry, is going to be joining us here in just a moment. And Mike G, howdy, howdy. Monday, Monday indeed. And he says, cheers from BC, Canada. Nice. And Annette Witt, how are you doing tonight? So glad you could be here. Annette says, good evening, everyone. I've decided to try watching from my laptop. Well, hopefully that works well for you tonight. And Jerry Kirk says, hello from Northern California. Hello, Jerry Kirk. And Brook Trout is back. And Brook Trout says, good evening from hot and muggy. I love it, Venice, Florida. Well, good. I'm glad you love it. And Lonnie Poe says, hello, had a heck of a storm pass through, hail, rain, and wind. Oh my goodness. Well, hopefully you didn't have any damage from that storm, but I'm glad you're here with us tonight. And Ira, Handworkers here. And Ira says, hello, Alone, and all of your friends. Hope everyone is doing great. Well, we hope the same for you and your mom. Thank you for being here. And Dustin Law, thank you. Dustin says, hi, everyone. And Norm says, hi all from Henrico County, Virginia. Hello, Norm. How you doing tonight? Poor Man is here from Poor Man's Homestead in Canada, British Columbia. Oh, let me turn my ringer off on my phone here. Sorry about that, folks. And we have Beth Tanner here as well. Thank you for being here, Beth. Beth is coming to us from Ohio. And Shirley Williams says, hi, good evening. Been looking forward to this from Ohio as well. Nice. And Ira says, love traveling to Valdez with you and Kenai. Well, thank you. I'm glad you guys like the scenic drives and all the scenery I include in my videos. That makes me feel good that I get to share Alaska and all of its beauty with you guys. Clint says, good evening from East Texas. Hi, Clint. So glad you could join us again tonight. And Euclid, how are you doing from Bakersfield, California? So glad you could join us. Lonnie says, last couple of months had bear sightings. Oh, wow. Well, hopefully the bear are leaving you alone. I think it was you who left the comment saying that the bear was watching you the other day while it was keeping itself cool in the shade. So not good. I have seen bear tracks and bear dung, if you will, bear scat on the property, but they were off of where the cameras could reach. And so unfortunately, I wasn't able to show you that in any of my videos, but I've had the mama moose and the baby coming through the property quite a lot. And a larger bull moose has come through the property. So that's good because all the moose I had seen up until that bull moose looked pretty thin. So I was very happy to see a nice healthy one finally come through. And Dustin says to Clint that we're burning up in Central Texas. Yikes. And Panhandle Off-Road Ranch, thank you for being here. Panhandle says hello from Sioux City, South Dakota. Nice of you to be here with us again, Panhandle. And Clint is saying, you wasn't smiling on that bulldozer. You looked kind of scared. I was kind of scared, to be honest with you. I was like, this is a big piece of equipment that is worth a lot of money, and I don't want to mess it up. Not that I probably could have for what I was doing, but being the first time on a bulldozer, yeah, I was just like, I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing. And I was trying to pay attention to what my contractor was saying to do. So it was a little intimidating, but it was actually kind of fun. Once I got the hang of it and was able to keep the blade, in check, both directions and up and down, then really it was actually kind of fun. Poor Man is saying that it was 80 degrees in the house today, stayed in all afternoon, too hot, got sick from the heat yesterday. Oh, that's not fun. Heat sickness is the worst. Hope you're recovering, and I hope you're doing better today. And Two Bears is here, everyone. Hey, Two Bears, how you doing? Two Bears says, good evening, Miss Alone, and the rest of the crew. And Lonnie's asking if I've done any fishing. I apologize. I actually have a little tickle in my nose, and I think that is from some flies that I was just tying. So I got a little bit of some feather, I think, in my nose, and it tickles. I might sneeze here in a moment. But I did get to do some fishing, and I'll be showing that in my next video. So I don't want to talk too much about it. I don't want to give everything away. But do check in next week because I will show you all the fishing adventures and where I went and everything. So it was a lot of fun, though. I was so glad to finally get to go fishing. And Clint says to Dustin Law, pretty hot and humid here as well. And Mitchell, how are you doing today? Mitchell Tickle from Indiana. Thank you for being here. And Matt, how's it going? Matt, AK. Matt says, what's up, fam? Is it August yet? 95 degrees in Utah today. Not yet, Matt. Unfortunately, got to wait a little bit longer. So those of you who are new to the chat and maybe haven't tuned in before or not familiar with Matt, Matt is actually planning a move up to Alaska this August. So he is anxiously waiting for that to roll around so he can finally get up here to his cabin. And Wendy, how are you doing tonight? Wendy Delator said, I don't know if it's Delator or Delator A, but Wendy says, hello from Wisconsin. We finally got some much needed rain. That is good. I'm happy to hear that. And I appreciate you being with us tonight. Ira says, I have been cooking nonstop with all of my produce coming in. Too good to something, the toddy. I'm not sure what that means. We char grilled 8 eggplants for various dishes. Yummy. I love eggplant. Eggplant is one of my favorites for sure. And poor man says, glad I got curtain shears over my garden. Yeah, if it's that hot, you're going to need them for sure. And Euclid says, have you by chance had the opportunity to hunt for meat so far? I did go hunting last fall for caribou. Unfortunately, I wasn't successful in that hunt. But I do plan on going again this year, not only caribou hunting, but also moose. I'm not sure if I'll do any other hunting, maybe some small game hunting around my property. And with any luck, I'll be able to hunt the moose right out my back door. So yeah, I did do a little bit last year, but like I said, wasn't successful, unfortunately. And Pauline says, hi. Hi all, sorry to be late. No worries, Pauline. So glad you could be here with us again tonight. And George says, greeting from Texas, y'all. It's hitting 3 digits down here. Hopefully it's better in your neck of the woods. Had a squirrel spread out on a wood handrail trying to get comfortable the other day. Oh my goodness. It is pretty comfortable here. The winds have been kicking up for the last 2 days though, but the temperatures have been in the high 60s. So with the winds, it doesn't feel too bad outside, but unfortunately, they have been blowing pretty strongly. So hopefully we don't get any power outages from trees hitting the power lines. But yeah, at least I'm not in the triple digits like you are. And Carlos Sanchez, how are you doing tonight? Carlos says, how often do you have to deal with your lights going out? Well, when I first moved into the cabin and up until probably this winter, I had a power outage every single week. And sometimes the power would just flicker on and off. Other times the power would be out for several hours. I think the longest that the power was out was overnight. But I would say in the last probably 4 months, I think I've only had 1, maybe 2 power outages. So whatever they've done has improved the power situation here. But if you saw my last video, I need to have an electrician out here to rewire the cabin and to re-dig and retrench the main power line. Well, a secondary power line that's running from the cabin over to the bunkhouse. So hopefully when they rewire the cabin, they can resolve some of the wiring issues that I have in here as well. But I don't think the internal wiring in the cabin has anything to do with my power outages, luckily. And Ira says, broke 100 degrees in South Georgia. Woo, also warm there where you are, Ira. Holy. And Connie Shannon, how are you doing tonight? Connie says, hi, Alone. Your videos are my favorites. First time from Ocala, Florida. Hi to all. Well, thank you, Connie, for being here. And thank you for the compliment. I really appreciate that. And Shane Ladow, how are you doing tonight? Shane is coming to us tonight from Albert Lee, Minnesota. Very cool. So glad you could be with us again, Shane. And Norm says, just think if you failed to listen to the contractor. Yes. Yes, 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 exactly. I might have actually wrecked the bulldozer. No, actually, the bulldozer isn't that hard to operate, but I am glad that he was here on site and that he was able to get done everything that he has been. He will have to come back out at a future time, though, because there's still more trees to take down. But we need to take down, we need to move some of the trees that he already took down before he can knock down some more. And we need to move the diesel tank that's on the property before he can knock down a whole nother stand of trees so that I can widen the circle drive, which will allow the oil tankers that come in to fill the oil tank itself a place to turn around, because unfortunately, when the snow is here, they really can't make their way around the curve that I have on my circle drive. And so hopefully we get that resolved so I can get oil deliveries all winter long. Because as it is right now, they can only deliver oil at the beginning of the season. And then that second fill of the season, they're complaining and refusing to come back until, the snow is cleared. So hopefully I get that resolved with some of the work I'm having done this summer. And Jerry Kirk is here. Hey, Jerry, how's it been? Jerry says, we have been having storms in Northern California, but in a couple of days, it'll be 110 degrees. Yikes. I am so happy that I am not dealing with those temperatures, but I feel for everybody that is, because that is unbearably hot. And Bricktat says, Wendy, where in Wisconsin are you from? I lived in Kenosha for 25 years before moving to Florida. Very cool. There, it is fly season today here also. So if you see me swatting at something, today it's not mosquitoes. Today it is the little soldier flies. Luckily, soldier flies, for the most part, will leave you alone. They just don't want anything to do with people. But they do get trapped in the cabin, unfortunately. And then they're kind of annoying because they hang out in the windows and make a lot of noise. And every now and then they'll fly around and, uh, you know, you notice them more than anything. But Pam Apps is here, and Pam says hello from Door County, Wisconsin. Hello, Pam. How you doing? I love Door County, Wisconsin. That is an absolutely beautiful area of Wisconsin. So happy you could be with us tonight too. And Jen, same to you. Jen says, do you still lose power like you used to? No, not really. Like I said, the last time was probably about, well, that's not true. The last time was actually a week ago, but it hasn't been going out as frequently as it had months ago. So that's a good thing. And Matt says, it's all I can talk and think about. Sorry if I'm a broken record. No worries. That's how I feel sometimes. I actually, after the last live stream, had a little thought of, oh my goodness, I talk so much. Being an introvert, it's kind of weird because I'm actually very shy, believe it or not. And so sometimes after these live streams, I'm like, oh my goodness, all I did was talk. Duh, that's what a live stream is. But it still is a little bit hard to register in my brain. So Matt, no worries. I completely get it. Absolutely, 100%. And RM, how are you doing tonight? RM says, good evening, Miss Annie Alone. Nice to see you. Same to you, RM. So glad you could be with us again. And Matt is saying howdy to Clint, who also just said howdy to Matt a second ago. And Weed Eater, how you doing tonight? Weed Eater says, good afternoon, Alone and Keenite. All y'all hi too. Well, thank you, Weed Eater. Weed Eater. That's a tongue twister. So glad you could be with us again. And Two Bears says, cough, cough. I believe that was a grouse, not a hawk. You are correct. It was a ruffed grouse that had hit the roof of my cabin and managed to break his neck and fall to his death. But Two Bears says, I believe that was a grouse, not a hawk, that hit your roof. They normally don't fly at night unless something scares them, but they're known for flying into buildings. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I was going to make a joke about maybe Sasquatch got tired of all the drumming that the ruffed grouse does, but I figured maybe that's in bad taste too. And Anto Adasi, how you doing tonight? Anto Adasi says, hello, Alone. Greetings to all fellow chatters. So awesome of you to be here again. And Rachel Hughes, how are you doing? Rachel says, just saying hello, my first live. So happy my Monday nights are now open. Well, thank you, Rachel. I'm so glad you could be here and join us when the live is actually happening. And Simple Grower, same to you, who says hello from Western Oregon. It's so nice to see so many new names in the chat. I love it. And Norm says 89 degrees here in Henrico County, Virginia. Well, at least you're a little bit cooler than those triple digits, but it's still pretty warm. Oh my. And AFJ, how are you doing tonight? AFJ says, evening, y'all, from the heart of Dixie, hot and muggy in South Alabama. Yikes, you guys are all experiencing the heat of summer as summer has finally kicked off. And Kim says, hello from Kentucky. Hope everyone is doing okay. Hey, Kim, how you doing? Nice to see you in the chat. And Clint says, Onto it, Aussie. Hello. Wendy is saying to Brook Trout, I'm from Sheopton. And I'm pretty sure that I did not pronounce that correctly, so I apologize. And Antradasi is also saying hello to Clint. Brook Trout says, there's a few cheeseheads here tonight. It looks that way for sure. Shane says, you're keeping me company while I do laundry at the truck stop. Thank you. You're welcome, Shane. I'm glad that I can keep you company and hopefully make the chores go by quicker. And Clint says, bulldozers are fun. Yeah, I have to admit, it was a lot of fun getting to write it, but I only wrote it down and then back up. I didn't do too much more than one pass and back. But like I said, there's a lot of work still to be done. So maybe the next time it comes up, maybe I'll try my hand at knocking down a tree or two with it. And Norm says, trees down means firewood to cut, stack, and to dry. Yes, it does actually. But most of the trees that I'm knocking down, I'm actually going to sell for lumber. So someone else can, get some lumber out of them. And then unfortunately, there aren't a whole lot of spruce that are being taken down. Mostly what's being taken down is aspen and poplar, which really don't burn that good. Here locally, they call the poplar ash, even though it's not an ash tree, but they call it ash because it burns so quickly and just leaves a lot of ash. And then the aspen stinks when you burn it. It's so unpleasant to burn. So unfortunately, I won't get a whole lot of firewood out of what's being taken down, but at least I'm going to get some funds back off of that to help pay for some of the work that needs to be done. And poor man says 7 fires on Vancouver Island today. Yikes. That's a lot of fires. I hope you're staying safe from it and that you're not near where the fires are, poor man. And Tammy Sue Rescues, how you doing again tonight? So glad to see you again. And she says hello from Waycross, Georgia. So nice of you to be here. And Joan Pavalier, same to you. Joan is saying hello from Eastern Pennsylvania. And Donna Heeden, nice to see you again. Donna says, howdy late again. Lol. Laughing out loud. I know some people get upset when I say lol. Hope you are all doing well. Definitely. So, and I hope you are too. And poor man says, well, in the house today, I made 1 gallon of pea soup and boiled 4 dozen eggs to pickle and potato salad. Yummy. Wow. It sounds like you're all ready for a nice picnic. And Woot still says, have you noticed help wanted job positions near you not getting filled? I'm doing a private population drop study and I'm just curious. I would say that yes, that is true, but I couldn't give you a true answer because I haven't really been paying attention to the help wanted signs. Um, I did talk to somebody though about jobs in the national park that my property backs up to, and they were saying that there aren't a whole lot of applicants for those jobs, and that you have to speak a second language like German or Japanese, French, Spanish, things like that, which there probably aren't a whole lot of second language speakers up here in this area. I'm just surmising. I could be completely wrong on that. But then the other thing is that I know the ferry system isn't running across the Gulf this year because of the fact that they weren't able to hire for the positions they have. So I would say that, yeah, there probably has been a lot of help wanted positions that just aren't filled here. But again, I honestly couldn't give you a true answer. And Pauline says it was 91 in Morston, Florida today. It felt like 100 degrees, no breeze or rain. I checked my mail, which is 3 acres away from the house. I got overcome. I think I'll drive from now on. Yeah, in the heat, that would be hard to walk for sure. Definitely. And Wayne Sperlin, thank you for being here again tonight. Wayne says hello from Denver, North Carolina. And poor man says, so did you have grouse for supper? I did not, because by the time I found it, it had been sitting out there for a couple of hours. And also, I wasn't quite sure what caused it to die. Like, I wasn't quite sure if it fell out of the sky from sickness or if it actually just flown into the roof because it wasn't paying attention. And I figure I'm not going to take my chances. So unfortunately, the bird got disposed of, but If I had killed it myself, I would have eaten it for sure. If I'd seen it not looking and flying to the roof, I probably would have eaten it. But since I didn't know for sure, I wasn't about to take the chances. And hi, Tyne. How are you doing tonight? Tyne's coming to us and says, hi there alone. Thank you, Tyne. And Autumn says, hi from Puerto Rico. Thank you for being here tonight, Autumn. So glad to see you. And I'm not going to use your name because that's not appropriate for my channel. Sorry about that. But it says, how valuable is it to have bacon in Alaska? It's probably pretty valuable because you need the fat calories in winter nonetheless. So yeah, that's a good thing to have. Wendy says, the smoke from the fires in Canada are terrible here today. Air quality is close to being hazardous. It smells awful. Oh, I would bet. It's unfortunate that there have been so many fires in Canada. I've not really been following the news, so I don't know how many wildfires we have in the United States or in Alaska at the moment, but the Canadian wildfires, that's about all you hear about these days. So unfortunately, I think the wildfires are just getting worse and worse over the years. And I don't know if that's because of our fire management through our forest services or if there's another reason for it, like climate change or what have you. But it is an unfortunate situation for sure. And AFJ says, good evening, Alone. I was able to find a nice copy of A Woman Who Went to Alaska, 1910 Boston, the Tudor Press. I'm looking forward to reading it. That's awesome. I'm glad you're able to find the book. I hope you enjoy it for sure. And I hope yours has, I just moved the book. Oh, I put it over here. I hope yours has the photos in it or illustrations. They say illustrations, but these look like photographs to me. Let me see if I can find one that I can show up here on camera. That cannot be an illustration for sure. That is a photograph. So this book is just filled with historical photographs. And I think it's really a fabulous book. So here's another one. But yeah, if you are interested in some Alaska history, this is a good book to get. So I just picked this up recently at a secondhand store in Valdez, and I've been enjoying it for sure. And Pauline Parker says, hi, Autumn. I lived in Bayman years ago. And Poor Man says, no smoke from the fires in Courtenay yet. Well, that's good. Luckily, you don't have any coming your direction. And Autumn says, awesome, Pauline. I lived in Recon. Nice, nice. And Connie says, I just hit the thumbs up. Come on, folks. Thank you for that, Connie. I appreciate it. And yes, that thumbs up will help to promote not only the live stream, but my channel as well. So I appreciate it also for everybody who does that. And Tyne says, hi from Port Coquitlam, sorry, British Columbia. It's 25 degrees Celsius here at 6:16 p.m. I think right now it's probably in the low 60s outside right now, but I could be completely wrong. If I were to look, let's see here. It is currently 62. So yeah, it's in the low 60s here. And Mary Beth Tanner says, can I ask what you do for relaxing times? Do you sew, crochet? Just wondering. So I do sew and fishing and gardening. Those are my three go-to relaxation things, as well as just sitting with Kenai and watching the mountains out back and looking for any wildlife that might come through the property. That's what I would do in my downtime more than anything is those four things actually. And Becky Rose, thank you for being here. Becky says hello from North Carolina. And Two Bears says, I was working at my barn one day and heard a loud thud on the other side, then wings beating on the ground. A ruffed grouse hit the barn. I had it for supper that night. Well, at least I know it tastes good. Tammy Sue says, she's almost to my hello, greeting to the room. I'm excited. Oh, you're so funny. Hey, Annie. Hey, Tammy. And Pauline Parker says, not familiar with Recon military. Norm says, weather here changes by the hour at times. Right now, we're having heavy rain with that thunder and lightning here in Henrico County, Virginia. Selling trees works for me. Canada is still having fire and smoke. Yeah, selling the trees is going to be about the only thing I can do to make back some of the money I'm spending to clear the property. So, and Rob is finally here from Curmudgeon Inn. Thank you for being here, Rob. I hope you got all the footage you wanted. So nice of you to go and do that tonight for your friends. And the Vineyard Farmhouse, how are you doing tonight? So glad to see you in the comments again. And I think it's by Brian. I apologize if I got it wrong. I know I got it wrong once before, so I apologize if I got it wrong again. But is saying good evening alone in remote Alaska. Well, good evening to you too. And Wayne Guthier, how are you doing tonight? Wayne says good evening from Northwest Florida. Wishing you a great time with all the new work going on with the dozer and etc. Well, thank you for that. And Woot still says thanks for answering. Take care. You are welcome. Thanks for being here. And Tammy Sue Rescues is saying hi to Rob, and Rob saying hello to the Vineyard Farmhouse. How are you, Brian? He's asking. And MJ Rentals, how are you doing tonight? MJ says hello from Kentucky. My grandson is headed to Fairbanks now to be a sports writer for the paper there. I love to keep up with you. Oh, well, thank you. And I hope your grandson has a great time while in Fairbanks and also finds his employment to be quite enjoyable as well. I think that's pretty cool. And Carol Weisenhunt, how are you doing tonight? Carol says, hi, Alone. How's your week been? Gardening, is the garden growing? My week has been good so far. And the garden is actually growing really well. The only thing that I haven't seen sprouting yet, well, two things. The red potatoes haven't really sprouted very well so far. Only a couple of them have I seen sprouting, but the Yukon Gold and the russets are sprouting, so that's good. But then outside of that is the ground cherries. I haven't seen a single ground cherry sprout yet. Everything else seems to be coming up nicely, and some of the cabbages are actually starting to get big as far as their outer leaves are going. So I have some that are probably 10 to 12 inches across already, which is really nice because I was kind of afraid of how they would do. And Weed Eater says, good afternoon to Rob over the Curmudgeon Inn. And Clint is saying hello to Tammy Sue Rescues. Poor man says, had 6 dozen eggs from the chickens there, not selling that good. They're only $6. Wow. I'm surprised that they're not selling that good at $6 because eggs here are expensive. As I've shown in some of my previous videos, I think the cheapest I've gotten eggs for has been about $7 a dozen. Yeah, and then if you're in Glen Allen, they're, $15 or something like that a dozen, which is outrageous. And Donna says, made homemade tomato basil soup with grilled ham sandwich. I ate too much. That sounds delicious. I think I would do the same thing if I had that right now. I had ramen for dinner. That's what I had. And on to it, Aussie is saying hello to Rob. And also Clint is also saying hello to Rob. And Tammy Sue is replying to Clint and saying hello back. And Mitchell says, what about your bunkhouse? Are you going to rent it out or turn it into an Airbnb? I am not going to rent it out or turn it into an Airbnb. Maybe down the road someday, if I can afford it, I might buy land in the area and with a small cabin on it and turn that into an Airbnb. But my bunkhouse, actually, I'm going to just hold it for friends and family that come out to stay with me. That way they have a private place to stay. And my contractors, when they're out here doing work, then they stay in there and stuff. So I could turn it into an Airbnb, but honestly, I would just prefer not to have strangers staying on my property because I know the Airbnb and what's the other one? VRBO. I know they provide insurance to help cover for any damages or things like that, but I don't know. To me, it's just more hassle than it's worth, I think. I'm not sure that I would want to do that here on my property, but maybe in another cabin that I didn't care about too much. And let's see here. Rob is saying hello to Anto Adasi and Clint and to Weed Eater. And poor man says, they say if you bury it under a plant or a tree, they do really good, the gross. Yeah, I understand like planting any dead animal underneath your vegetation, whether it's, like you said, a tree or shrub or whatever. Put fish underneath your tomato plants and supposedly they do incredibly well. But yeah, I definitely think that having those opportunities is good. That's just not what I did this time. I didn't have anything to plant it under because everything had already been planted by that time. So I just need to get it off of the property. And Rob says, you got him just as I saw him. Yep. Yep. It's all good. Every now and then we'll get somebody that just, yeah. Rosemary says, good evening from Newcastle, Indiana. It's 71 degrees here this evening with rain threatening. Well, hello, Rosemary. And 71 degrees, at least it's not too hot there. But yeah, the rain, you probably need it as much as everyone else has been needing it, just as long as you don't get too much. But I'm glad to see you in the chat again tonight. And Rob is saying hello to Poor Man. And Joan is saying hit the thumbs up button. Thank you for that, Joan. I really appreciate it. And there is Poor Man's Homestead Canada BC channel link for everybody. Be sure to pay Poor Man a visit and tell him that Alone sent you. And onto it, Aussie is saying, well done, Rob. And Brian says, hey there to Rob. And there is Vineyards, the Vineyard Farmhouse's channel link, which is Brian. So be sure to pay Brian a visit and tell him that Alone sent you as well. I would appreciate that. And I'm sure he would too. And Tammy Sue says, I love your voice, Annie. You're great at everything you do, though. Thank you for that, Tammy Sue. I really appreciate it. Put a smile on my face for sure. And Not So Remote Alaska, how are you doing tonight? And they say, good evening, Alone. Hello, everybody in the chat. So glad to see you in the chat tonight. And Curmudgeon has put up Not So Remote Alaska's channel link for everybody. So be sure to pay them a visit, especially if you are into being thrifty and frugal with your money and finds and things like that. That is a great channel for that, for sure. Amongst other things, he has a lot of great videos, but definitely he is very thrifty and you can learn a lot from him. And Jerry, how are you doing tonight? Jerry says hello from North Texas. We're considering the heat index, we're enduring 115 degrees. Woo! I do not know how you live like that. I think I'd pass out. To be honest, every time I hear you guys talk about triple digits, I'm just like, ugh. I remember a couple times in Colorado where it'd get up to 112 or what have you, and it's just too miserable to be outside, especially if there was no wind whatsoever. And Captain Walker, how are you doing tonight? Captain Walker says climate activists are probably starting the fires. They'll do anything to push their agenda. Sometimes I wonder the same thing. I know back in Colorado that there was such an incident like that where someone had set the woods on fire down by Woodland Park, and it turned out to be, arson because they were trying to do just that. They were trying to push their agenda. So it's a shame for sure. And over at Rob's place in Talkeetna, he is saying it is 66 degrees, so just 4 degrees warmer than it is here. And Clint is saying hello to Not So Remote. And Ira says, is there much vandalism in your part of Alaska? As I watched another channel thinking it was yours called Remote Life in Alaska, and their truck windows were all broken in. No, there is a little bit of crime in this area, but not too much really. That was one of the reasons why I chose this area. So when I looked to move to Alaska, one of the very first things I did was I created a Gantt chart that I could mark, certain factors to take into consideration on for the areas in which I was looking at. How far was the police department? How far was the fire department? Hospitals nearby, veterinarians. And then one of the other things that I looked at was the crime statistics by the FBI. And in this area of Alaska where I live, it actually has a negative crime rating. So most crime ratings, go from 0 to 100. Anchorage is very high on that scale because it's very populated. There's just a lot of other factors that lend to the crime rate in Anchorage. But here, it actually has a negative crime rating, meaning that the crime rate is below 0, meaning that we haven't had a violent crime in this area in decades. In fact, I just saw there's a YouTube Shorts channel that does, I don't know what his channel actually does, but he was putting up a map of all the homicides in the last decade. And it was a map of the entire United States. And in the area where I live, it was white. And his scale started at gray and then went up to red. Red, of course, being high homicide rates, and gray being low, like 0 to, 10 or whatever the scale was. But mine was actually white, as in there has never been a homicide in this area, though I know that's not true. in the last decade. There may not have been, but I know prior to me moving here, there was a homicide in this area. I say homicide, but um, it was a fight that took place here locally. I don't want to get into too many details because I don't know the specifics of it, and I don't want to slander anybody. But yeah, there is crime in this area. It's just not that bad. It's very infrequent, I should say. Clint says to Jerry, "Just wait, it's gonna get hotter." Ugh, yikes! And Bill's here from Alaska's Last Frontier Homestead. How are you doing tonight, Bill? Uh, Bill says he is listening and driving. Nice, nice. And there is Rob's channel link over at the Curmudgeon Inn. So be sure to check out Bill. I would appreciate that. And I'm sorry, Rob. Bill's comment got me thrown off there. Sorry for that. But yeah, be sure to check out Rob over at the Curmudgeon Inn. Rob's probably rolling his eyes at me right now. Like, what? And Dixieland, how are you doing tonight? Dixieland Homestead is here. And Dixieland says, hey, or hello, Annie and mods and everyone in the chat. So glad you could join us again tonight, Dixieland. And Rob Clint is saying that that's a heat wave for y'all, 66 degrees. I agree. But Rob says, nah, in my eyes, it's perfect. Well, that's good. For me, 60 degrees is really warm. I like it cooler than that, but to each their own for sure. And Raphael, how are you doing tonight? Glad to see you again. Raphael says, hello, everyone. I wish I was in Alaska. Yeah, I understand that feeling. I hope someday you get to make it, though, Raphael. Anto Adasi says hello to Dixieland, and Weed Eater says good afternoon to Bill over at Alaska's Last Frontier Homestead. Safe travels. I agree. And Brian says, Brian is right. Thank you for that, Brian. I apologize for the time I got it wrong incorrectly before. And Ira says hi to Rob over the Curmudgeon Inn. RM says, if you don't mind me asking, I'm curious about the very pretty dress blouse that you are wearing. Did you sew it yourself? I wish I could sew beautiful things like that, but I am a fumble fingers. I did not. This is off of Amazon, believe it or not. I will leave a link in the replay for this live stream to this particular dress. But no, I did not sew this one. This is definitely an Amazon purchase. And Dixieland is saying hi to Andre Rossi, and Brian is saying hey there to Bill over at Alaska's Last Frontier Homestead. And there is Andre Rossi's channel link for everybody, so be sure to pay them a visit as well. And Tammy Sue says, yes, I noticed that too, RM. I love Annie's outfits too. Well, thank you so much for that, both of you. And Rob is saying hello to Dixieland and to Bill. And Clint says, I believe in Bigfoot, but it's irrelevant until Bigfoot believes in himself. Oh my goodness. Always with the humor. I love it. And Steve's Woodworking. How are you doing tonight, Steve? Steve says, sorry, my name. Say my name. Good alone, lol. Oh my goodness, with the song lyrics tonight. And Ira says, good. Our ground cherries need 75 to 80 degrees for the tiny seeds to germinate. Oh, well, that's good to know. That is good to know. I was actually wondering about that. Unfortunately, the package that I had received didn't actually have that information on there. So that is very good to know. So I might not get ground cherries there then because it rarely gets that warm. And there is Dixieland's channel link. So be sure to pay Dixieland a visit from me, if you will. And Steve is saying, hey, everybody. And Mary Beth says, oh my goodness, that's expensive for eggs. I would find an egg substitute. Luckily, I don't eat that many chicken eggs. But yes, it is quite expensive for sure. And Tammy says, lol, I get excited too, to Steve. That's funny. Rob says, I saw eggs in Three Bears the other day for $3. Oh, well, that's good to know. The next time I head into town, maybe I'll stop and pick some up. And Dixieland is saying thank you to Rob. And the Vineyard Farmhouse, Clint is saying, hey. And Tyne says, what's ground cherries? Or is it just self-explanatory? So ground cherries are a low-growing kind of bushy or shrubbery type soft vegetation plant that puts out a sweet fruit that kind of looks like a gooseberry, but it comes in a husk like a tomatillo or the Chinese lantern plants. And the fruit in it is very sweet. Like I said, it kind of looks like a gooseberry. Um, but unlike a stone fruit cherry, which is the ones you get on the trees, it doesn't have a pit in it. And they're kind of a chartreusey green color. Um, yeah, so they're pretty tasty though. And poor man says, sorry, 16 a dozen. Woo, 16 a dozen. That's a lot. That's a lot of money for eggs for sure. And Pauline says, wow, eggs here are less than $3 a dozen. Yikes. I'm I'm paying premium prices on this side of the state for things for sure. And Rob has put up Steve's Woodworking and Homesteads channel link for everybody. So be sure to pay Steve a visit. And who is also saying, hey, this Brian over at the Vineyard Farmhouse. Simple Grower, how are you doing tonight? Simple Grower says yum to Donna. And Steve is saying hello to Robert Curmudgeon Inn. And Clint is saying hello to Steve. We got a lot of back and forth going here tonight. Brian is saying hey there to the Mitchell. And Rob is saying that only Sarah and I are crazy enough to do the Airbnb. Yeah, you guys are brave for sure. Absolutely. Maybe if it wasn't just me here, I might consider it, but with it just being me here by myself, I figure it's better if I just don't allow people onto the property because you just never know what someone's intentions are for sure. And Dixieland says, I'm going in the morning to look at 35.34 acres. Might be moving my homestead soon. Oh, that's a nice sized piece of property. I hope that it works out for you and that you get a good price on it too. And Chris Watson's in the house. How are you doing tonight, Chris? So glad to see you. Chris says, present, have to work tonight and had the week from hell. Need some uplifting. Oh, I'm sorry you had a bad week. But yeah, we're here to lift up your spirits for sure. So I'm glad you made it to the live tonight, Chris. And Entre Rossi says, hello to Bill over at Alaska's Last Frontier. And Rob is saying to Bill, how are you doing? Bill Dixon is in the house, everybody. Hey, Bill, how are you doing tonight? Bill says, beautiful work getting your garden in alone. Love it. Tally girl just loves getting in the beds like Kenai does. Happy harvest, my friend. Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. So glad to see you also tonight. So if you get a chance, be sure to check out Bill's channel. There is the link for his channel over at the Pungo Prairie. I'm sure he would appreciate it as well. And Steve says, chopped up fish is the best for plants. Yep, that's what I've heard. I've heard the fish does amazing things for the plants itself. Poor man says he's back. And Roger Weston, how are you doing tonight? Roger is asking, how is Kenai? Kenai's doing good. He's taking a nap behind me right now. You probably hear him snoring and chirping in a minute because he's probably going to start dreaming. And Chris says, sorry, I hijacked the comments on your preview. No worries. In fact, I was going to ask you to repost your comment on the main video, and I will pin it to the top comments. So if you can copy and paste that in, I will pin it to the top comment because I think what you had to say was important. So yeah, no worries on that whatsoever. And there again is Bill Dixon's channel link for everybody. And Bill is saying, I am good. And Clint is saying hello to Bill Dixon. And Brian is saying thank you to Rob over the Curmudgeon Inn and to me. Well, thank you as well, Brian. We appreciate you also. And Poor Man says, one thing I like about living on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, is we don't have to pay for water yet. Well, that is good. That is nice. Unfortunately, even I have to pay for water here in this remote part of Alaska, even though it comes from a well. So it's not like it's going through a treatment plant or anything like that, but I still have to pay for the key at least to get water. And Bill Dixon says hello to Curmudge and also to Clint. And AFJ says, hey, Alone, I just finished a juicy ribeye. You're making my mouth water. No home fries, but I had a side of West Indies salad. Yum. That sounds delicious. Absolutely. I love steak. I can't deny it. Grew up eating steak almost, I think almost 5 nights a week. We had steak when I was growing up as a kid, just because my dad loved steak. He didn't want chicken or, any other kind. Fish once in a while, pizza every now and then, but it was beef all the way. And so we had steak a lot. So much so that after my sister and I moved out, when we turned 18, 19 years of age, neither of us ate steak for a couple of years or any beef, because we just couldn't stand it anymore. It was like, I've had so much in my life. I don't want to taste it. And then after a couple of years, I started craving it again. So I love the fact that you had steak for dinner. Hey, Elizabeth, how are you doing tonight? Elizabeth Webb says, hey, hi alone. Well, hi back to you. Thank you for being here. Steve is saying yum, I think, to AFJ's comment also. And Patty Jackson, how are you doing tonight? Patty says, hey, I love you so much. You're such an inspiration to living alone in Alaska. Brave woman for sure. Love you. Well, thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that people, do see not only that it can be done, but also that, yeah, I am either brave or stubborn, one of the two. I'm not exactly sure which. Sometimes I wonder if it's the stubborn more than the bravery. And Bill over at Alaska's Last Frontier says it is 61 degrees currently in Anchorage. Thank you for that, Bill. And 44th North Wyoming, how are you doing tonight? It says good evening, 64 or 65 degrees rather, here tonight in Wyoming. So you're pretty close to what Rob is over there in Talkeetna. Shane Ladow says, I like Rampart Reservoir in Woodland Park. I spent the entire winter up there on Bureau of Land Management land in my Ford F-250. It was great. Yeah, Rampart Range is a very popular place. That's back in Colorado, and it is like a dirt biker's heaven. You'll see all sorts of people up there on quads and dirt bikes, but it is absolutely beautiful. One of the most beautiful places, I think, in Colorado. And Steve's Woodworking says most crimes happen near a police station. That might be true. I think they put police stations in areas that probably need policing, but then again, who knows? But I'm just glad that this area is not high on crime for sure. And Sarah says, hi alone, late again, but can't miss your live. Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that and appreciate seeing you. And Steve is saying hi to Sarah over at Curmudgeon Inn. And Deep Base Homestead, how are you doing tonight? Deep Bay says, good evening, Annie and all. Hope everyone is doing good tonight. Well, we hope the same for you. So glad to see you again. And Rachel Hughes says, Annie alone, what is one item you wish you brought more of with you when you moved to Alaska? I know you had space issues, but if you had unlimited space, what would I have brought up? That is a really good question. Was there chairs? Chairs. I would have brought chairs to sit on, because for the, first 2 years, basically, I just had this one chair, which was okay. And then camp chairs, but to have a nice living room chair to sit in, that would have been great. And then also, I've been looking for some living room chairs, and unfortunately, I don't want to pay the prices that people are charging for new furniture up here. And I've looked at Craigslist and things like that, but unfortunately, I'm just not finding what I want. And I had some nice chairs back in Colorado. I mean, they weren't the best, but they were decent, that I wish I had brought with me. I think that would have been better than sitting on a camp chair for sure. So chairs, furniture. Chris says, pretty red here. Just dealt with a homicide late last week. Oh my goodness. That is a shame. That is definitely a shame. And I'm sure that says pretty sad, is what you meant there. But yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Chris. And I hope that you're not, being too introspective on that one for sure. Because I know that sometimes that's hard when you're dealing with things like that. Ernie's Cabins, how are you doing tonight, Ernie? Ernie says, hello alone. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a great summer. Well, we hope the same for you, Ernie, and I'm so glad to see you in the chat again tonight. And Dixieland says, hello to Deep Bay Homestead. And Matt says, I hope those Remote Life Alaska kids stick it out. They've had a rough go at it so far. I'm going to have to check them out. I'm not sure if I've seen their channel yet or not, but I will pay them a visit and see what their channel's all about. But yes, I think, it's sad. You see some people come up here and
Either they just aren't cut out for it after they took the time and the investment to move up here, or they start a channel and they just don't have the time to invest into the channel, which is I also think is unfortunate, because if you're like me, you're so curious about how people are living, even when they're living just not too far from where I'm located. So I hope that they're doing well also, and that they are able to stick it out. And Rob is saying hello to Ernie over at Ernie's Cabin. And Deep Bay Homestead is saying hello to Dixieland Homestead. And there is Ernie's Cabin's channel link. So be sure to pay Ernie a visit. I'm sure they would appreciate that. Onto it, Aussie says Fahrenheit temperatures do my head in. That's how I feel about Celsius. Like, it should be easy conversion, but it's not. About the only one that I know is 0 and 32 degrees are the same, and -40 and -40 are the same. Other than that, I get lost trying to do the conversion. And Beachcomber, how are you doing tonight? Beachcomber says, good afternoon, everyone. Hope all is well for you all. Well, we hope the same for you, Beachcomber. So glad to see you again. And AFJ says to Rob over at Curmudgeon Inn, good evening, Rob and Sarah. And Liberty Can, how are you doing tonight? Liberty says, is there any property up there available through homesteading? Nope. The Homesteading Act ended, I think in the 1980s, I think. But what there is available is the state does offer land sales. You have to, you as an outsider, you can buy land through the state here, but they offer in-state programs as well. I have, I don't think I did a video on it, but maybe I will. Maybe I'll put a video out regarding what all is involved in buying property through the state. But you can go to the Department of Natural Resources, so the DNR of Alaska. I think it's DNR/Alaska or .Alaska. And you can find out about all the land sales here and everything that's involved in purchasing land through their state website. That's about the best place to get an idea of the state land sales. But unfortunately, it used to be that you could go into, I'm looking off into the distance because I'm thinking that you could go, if you, it was like a lotto system. If you won the lotto and you got land, because that's how this property came to be, actually, was through the Homesteading Act. You were given, to start with, what is it, like 160 acres, and you had to meet certain requirements to obtain that 160 acres. So you you were able to come out and mark your territory of your 160 acres, and then you had to live on it for 1 year, I believe it was 1 full year, and you had to build a structure that was, I think, 160 feet square foot footprint. I think those were the only two requirements. Maybe you had to live on it for a full year, and then for like 6 months out of the year for 5 years after that or something. I don't really remember exactly what it was, but unfortunately, the person who got the right to this land originally, they didn't meet one or both of those criteria. The time spent on the land or the dwelling on the land. Something happened, and their land footprint was reduced to 5 acres. So that's why I only have 5 acres of land here. But yes, it is possible to get land through the states, just not through the Homesteading Act. And Colorado Pack Rat Prepper, how you doing tonight? Howdy, howdy. I'm so glad to see you again. And Dixieland Homestead says, please hit the like button. Thank you for that, Dixieland. Much appreciated. Patty Jackson says, very hot here in the southeast. Sweet Home, Alabama, expecting 103 degrees in by Friday. Yikes, another hot, hot place down there in the south. And Dixieland says hello to Colorado Pack Rat Prepper. And Alaska's Last Frontier Home says, ugh, Anchorage rush hour traffic. Yes, I do not like the traffic in Anchorage, no matter the time of day, but I can imagine rush hour would be even worse. And Colorado Pack Rat Prepper is saying howdy to Dixieland. Dixieland is saying to Patty Jackson, in this part of Alabama, our heat index is 112 today. Whew, you guys are so warm down there. And Annette Witt, how are you doing tonight? Annette says one of the fires in Woodland Park area were started by the fire department. Everyone was fired. One firefighter was charged. Yikes. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. That might be the firefighter. So that was a second fire, and I think that one was in Park County. Um, just going back to the fires being started by people. And that fire was actually started by a firefighter who was in some love affair, and she had broke up with her lover, and she'd written a love letter, and then she'd gone off into the woods to burn the love letter. And in doing so, she started the fire. I might be talking about a different one than Annette is, but yeah, that fire, again, also started by a firefighter, caused a lot of damage. I think that was the biggest fire in the area in decades. I don't remember the total number of acres burnt, but it was ginormous amount of land that was destroyed by that female firefighter burning that love letter. Two Bear says, I started my ground cherries in the house and transplant into 5-gallon buckets outside. Well, next year I might just try that then, because like I said, they're not coming up. And with my luck, middle of July, we'll hit that 80-degree day and they'll probably sprout, and then they won't make it to uh, fruiting because of the fact that it was so late in the season. But if they do sprout, maybe I'll dig them up and transplant them into buckets, then bring them in to finish them off. Marla Martucci, how are you doing tonight? Marla says, greetings alone and everyone on the chat. This stormy night in DC. Good vibes. Another place where it's raining. Well, Marla, thank you for being here, and hopefully the storms don't get too bad where you're at tonight. And Rob is saying hello to Dixieland, to Two Bears, and Dixieland is saying hello to Marla. And Rob is saying to Liberty, the old style homestead system has been over for some time now. And Steve's Woodworking is saying to Two Bears, do you have to plant every year or do they come back? Poor Man's Homestead said, thinking of cutting back on chickens and stop selling eggs, not worth the trouble, but paid for the feed. Well, that's good. At least it paid for the feed when you were able to do it. But yeah, I thought about raising chickens here, but I want to do so much traveling when I'm here that I just don't want to have to worry about the chickens. And also, I think I would worry about them just because of the amount of predators that I have in the area. Over the last couple of days, I've seen a wolverine in the area. I haven't been able to get him on camera yet, but there is a wolverine in the area. I know that there are lynx in the area. I've shown the fox on some of my trail cams and footage, but I would be worried about having chickens here for sure. The previous owners told me that they didn't really have too many predators, on foot going after their chickens, but they said that they had owls that would come after the chickens for sure, and that would break into the chicken coop. Tyne says, cherries are my favorite fruit. They sound divine alone. Yes, they are for sure. If you ever get the chance to grow sometime, you should probably try. If not, find maybe somebody who has them. But I've never seen them for sale in the stores for sure. I don't think that they last that long once they've been picked. But maybe Two Bears can answer that for us. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take a drink of water here. Deep Bay says, never heard of ground cherries, but they sound interesting though. And Two Bears says he plants them every year. And Steve is saying, thank you for that information, Two Bears. And Captain Walker says they're giving away eggs in New York right now. What happened that it went from there was an egg shortage and egg prices were sky high to now eggs are super cheap again. Well, I wouldn't say super cheap, but cheaper. And in some areas, they're practically giving them away. It's like, how did that happen? And Sarah says, absolutely no B&B for you. You need your security. I agree. That is one of the things that I don't ever want to give up is my security here and my peace and quiet. Also, I happen to like that I can go outside and I don't see, neighbors or another person or even hear noise from humans here on my property. Though I do have a funny story about the other night, just as I was dozing off, I thought that I heard a man singing like off in the distance, and I could not figure out what the noise was. I was listening outside trying to figure out what the noise was, and when I got closer to the door of the loft, I thought it sounds like there's a rock concert taking place off in the distance, like a fair distance away. Could not figure it out. Kept listening and listening. After a while, gave up and went to sleep. The next morning, when I woke up, there was a mosquito buzzing over my head, and I realized that's all I was hearing was the mosquitoes and the noise reverberating off of the walls or corners of the cabin. I had a good giggle about it though, because I was like, no rock concert, just annoying mosquitoes. Onto it, Aussie says, here in Australia, I've noticed all the real foods like meats, dairy, and fresh veg are disappearing, but manufactured foods are plentiful. Anyone notice that in Alaska? Well, I've not been to the grocery store lately, but the last time that I was in the store, I did not notice that myself. Um, but I'd be curious to know what others are noticing in their areas of the US for sure. And Linda, how are you doing tonight, Linda? Linda says, lay a cold frame on top of the ground cherries. Good idea, Linda. That's actually an excellent idea. And she says, hi, all. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm exhausted, so I'm laying here with my eyes closed and listening. I'm not sure what Temu good. The eyes closed. Yeah, sorry, don't understand the last part of that, but I hope that you get some rest, Linda. I know that you're probably, you know, keeping everybody in check these days as you normally do. So hopefully you're doing well. But I appreciate you being here and listening nonetheless. And Alaska Cut the Cord is in the house, and we have both Adam and Phyllis checking in with us tonight. How are you guys doing? I need to talk to you guys soon. I have a question for you guys. And poor man's homestead says, try this again. I did all the eggs because they're not I did all the eggs because they're not selling at $6 a dozen and had the buildup of 16 dozen in stock. Okay, that makes way more sense. I was going to say selling eggs for $16 a dozen. That would pay for the feed, but it would be hard to sell them. So that makes way more sense. Thank you, poor man. Appreciate the clarification. And Donna is saying to Simple Grower, thanks. It was good. And Rob is saying hello to Adam and Phyllis, who are saying hello back to Rob over the curmudgeon inn. Clint says on Aussie, they are trying to replace real meats and etc. everywhere, which I think is a shame. Like I do not want to eat lab grown or plant based meats. I want the real thing for sure. And Dixieland is saying hi to Alaska Cut the Cord. And there is Alaska Cut the Cord's channel link for everybody. Be sure to pay Adam and Phyllis a visit if you would. And Matt is saying, hey guys, to Adam and Phyllis, as well as onto it Aussie. Alaska Cut the Cord is also saying hello to Dixieland and Matt and onto it Aussie as well. Daisy and Ed's Alaskan Adventures, how are you doing tonight? They say farm and seed and Palmer sells seed by Mel. Seeds are from Alaska. All mine germinated. Well, that is good to know. I will have to check them out. Thank you for letting me know. And thank you for being here. And I'll see if I can get Rob to throw up your channel link as well. Appreciate it. And Two Bear says, I plant Aunt Molly's ground cherries and they do great in pels. You let the cherries fall off the plant on their own before you harvest them. Good to know. Good to know. Thank you for that, Two Bears. And George says, out of curiosity, Max, my Chihuahua, wants 49 other Chihuahuas to join him to run the Iditarod, one from each state. He figures that what they lack in stride, they'll make up in less wind resistance. Oh my goodness, you must be related to Clint with all the jokes. That's pretty good, though. Steve's Woodworking says, onto it, Aussie, strange, our food plants are burning down. Our fruit plants are burning down left and right here in the States. That is true, too, as well as some major grocery warehouses. Like I know that Azure Standard had one of their warehouses burned down as well. So not only is it our food production plants, but others that have to do with our food and processing as well, like some of the chicken plants and what have you. Sarah says, I grew up on old dairy cows. That was some tough meat. Oh, I bet. I bet it was. Absolutely. Matt says, I have a small freezer full of homegrown beef that I think I'll have to leave behind. We'll just spread it out to family. I just don't think I'll be able to keep it frozen for a week, a road trip. Yeah, so that was one thing, a lesson that I learned is that I did try to bring up some carrots and cabbages with me and potatoes. They didn't make it. Once we got on the ferry and I couldn't get to them, they basically spoiled over the time that I was on the ferry. And all of my meats, because I had the same situation. had freezers full of meats. I gave them to coworkers because I knew I wasn't going to be able to bring it up here with me. And I felt kind of bad because it was a lot of money spent, but also it was good that someone else got to enjoy the meat as well. And hopefully they were, able to use it all up before it went bad. George says Max is also looking for some good snowshoe and anorak makers. Oh my goodness. Hello, Janie. How are you doing tonight? Janie says, hi, alone. Since moving to Alaska, have you noticed any positive changes in your overall well-being? I certainly think you have. I definitely think I have. I think I look tired tonight. I keep seeing my face in the camera. I'm not sure if it's just shadowing coming in from the light of the window or what, but no, I feel like my stress levels are way down, especially since I quit working a full-time job. Stress levels are down. I feel like I'm way more relaxed. I'm giggling all the time, cracking myself up. Um, yeah, it definitely has had a positive impact upon my well being and I think my health too, for sure. And Patty Jackson says, the Pungo Prairie I love. Oh my, how sweet. I love them. Such a sweet man. Yeah, Bill Dixon is an awesome, awesome person, and he has an incredible channel as well as so many talents. He is one of the most talented people I've ever seen. He just blows my mind with all the things he does and comes up with. So wonderful channel. If you get the chance, do check out Bill Dixon over at the Pungo Prairie. So thank you for that, Patty. I'm sure he appreciates hearing that as well. And Donna says, banana peel and coffee grounds steeped in a water glass jar with lid. Then water your plants and flowers and they will grow like never before. Well, that's good to know too. If I only had some banana peels, I'll have to maybe buy some next summer and keep them in the freezer until I need them. And Chris Watson says, watching a trash panda feasting in a dumpster. I take my entertainment where I can get it. I hope to have it's huge next winter. I hope to have it huge next winter. Hee hee. Oh my goodness. Are you going to make a coontail hat out of that trash panda? Are you? Onto it, Aussie says, yeah, to Clint. I use a pure cream for my coffee just this week. It was deleted from all three big stores. Fake meat abandoned, adorned the shelves. That is not good because I use real cream also, and if I could not get heavy cream at the grocery store, I think I would probably, that would cause depression in me for sure. Because I get the majority of my calories out of my day actually come from the heavy cream that I use. I know that's probably doesn't sound all that healthy, but I rely on it. That's how I start my day off. Without heavy cream, I would be starving. Linda says, hi, everyone. I'm here, but not here. I'm exhausted, so listening with my eyes closed. Hope everyone is doing well. Put a cold frame over the ground cherries. Will do, Linda, for sure. I appreciate the suggestion. I should have thought of that myself. So I appreciate you reminding me of that. And Clint is saying hello to Alaska Cut the Cord. And Michelle Ellis, how are you doing tonight? Michelle says, hi, alone. Greetings from San Diego. It's currently 72 degrees here. Well, thank you for being here, and I appreciate you joining in the chat as well. Matt says, oh, howdy to Rob in the Curmudgeon Inn. And Christine LaRose, how are you doing tonight? Christine says, hi from Quebec, Canada. Here it is 88 degrees and stormy. Oh, my. Seems like it's storming all over the East Coast tonight. Alaska's Last Frontier says 57 degrees near Eagle River and rainy. It looks like it's threatening rain outside, but we're not expecting any rain for a couple of days now. So I'm kind of jealous that they're getting the rain, and those of you on these coasts are getting some because I need to water my garden. And if the rain would come, I wouldn't have to do it. Sarah says, not stubborn or even brave, confident, and rightly so. Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. And Alaska Cut the Cord is saying hello to Clint. Two Bears says, Miss Alone, you better knock on wood for the no crime comments. Yes, it's low crime for sure, but not necessarily no crime. I know that there is some crime in this area, but for the most part, like I said, it's pretty minor what takes place on this side of the state. Thank goodness. Hopefully it stays that way. Onto it, Aussie says, yeah, Steve's woodworking in Homestead. I did see that was happening. Yikes. All the food plants being burnt down, that is. And Rob says to Alaska Cut the Cord, I just looked and saw the total from Friday. That is nuts. So Rob had a live stream on Friday, and Alaska Cut the Cord was a special guest. And you can go back and watch that on replay if you would like to see the two of them in person talking. I unfortunately missed it because I was out fishing. So I need to go back and watch the replay myself. Um, and Mitchell says, Alone, thanks so much for responding. Truly understand. You are welcome, Mitchell. I appreciate you being here. And anytime, I'm more than happy to answer the questions. And Deep Bay Homestead says, Hey to Christine LaRose. We are in Ontario. Liberty Can says, What part of Colorado? I lived in Greeley, Westminster, Aurora, Arvada areas. Some great memories. Yeah, I lived basically in the Denver metro area. I did live further north of Denver for a little bit. I lived in Aurora and Southwest Denver, but mainly right around the Denver. I never lived in Denver proper, though. Or did I? Maybe I did for a little bit. I moved a lot, unfortunately. Um, Yeah, but all around the Denver metro area. But yeah, Colorado is absolutely beautiful. So if you can't make it to Alaska, I do recommend going to Colorado because it Alaska is like Colorado on steroids, only with the seashore, which Colorado, unfortunately doesn't have, but it does have a lot of beauty for sure. And Clint says to George, be sure to post a video. Not sure 50 chihuahuas will be enough. Oh my goodness. And Alaska Cut the Cord said, we're happy for it, meaning for all the views they got on their live stream. Steve's Woodworking and Homestead says, onto it, Aussie. It's crazy. We never hear about the investigations ever. It happens, then we don't hear any follow up. I think that happens with most of the news. I was thinking about that. Like, it's all sensationalized headlines, but then they never provide any closure or any follow up news investigations as to what caused anything or what charges were pressed against the perpetrators of, X such and such crimes. So it's a bad part about the news in America. I think a lot of it is just sensationalized just to get your attention. Um, Clickbait is what I think. And Rob says that I'm tickled. Owe it to you two for the views on Friday Nights Live. Sarah says, I use Marketplace for furniture. If I find a great chair, I'll send you some info. Well, I don't have Facebook. So if you find one, I might have to have you reach out to them for me because I'm not a Facebook fan, but I would appreciate that for sure. I did see some things out there through a friend of mine who was showing me on Facebook and thought, yeah, that would be great, but I'm not going to sign up for that. And Surprise Me says 83 degrees Celsius equals 38 degrees Celsius equals 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that is good to know. So it just basically flipped on itself there. That's interesting. So 38 degrees Celsius is really, really warm. Oh my goodness. And Poor Man's Homestead Candace says, just build your own living room chairs. I thought about that too, for sure. But then I thought they probably wouldn't turn out that good. And 44 North says, I was told that the best salmon in Alaska comes from the Copper River. Is that true? I've always wondered if it was. So I will tell you that I actually got my first Copper River red fillet the other day. It was given to me and it was absolutely delicious. By far the best salmon that I've ever had. Now, that's not saying a whole lot because I've not eaten fresh salmon in Alaska before, but it was fantastic. So it might be true. And I've heard the same thing. And the color on it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The richest, most vibrant color that you could imagine. So I'll let you know though, because I am going to go salmon fishing here soon over off of the Kenai Peninsula. I'm going to go fish the Russian River. Um, so if I get some sockeye salmon there, I'll let you know how it tastes in comparison to the Copper River Reds for sure. Mitchell says, I miss the wilderness. I have too much Virginian mountain blood to remain in Indiana. Wish me luck. I'm searching. Yes, all the luck to you. I understand. I couldn't stay in the city any longer than I did. So I'm very happy to be here. I wish everybody had the opportunity to move out to the country and live a very fulfilled life, full of wildlife and views for sure. So all the luck to you for sure. Two Bear says the Homestead Act ended in 1886. I should have went and got my free 160 acres. So that was the Homestead Act that was put out by the federal government, but then the state of Alaska had a Homestead Act here in Alaska that ended in the 1900s, and I think that was in like 1987 or something like that. So there were two different acts that were in place here in Alaska: the Homestead Act and then the Alaska Homestead Act as well. And Onto It Aussie says, hey to Steve over at Steve's Woodworking. I'm on to it. He. I know what they're up to. Wink, wink. And we have Ed over at Mountain Mariner Off Grid, Alaska. And Ed says 100 degrees Celsius is the boiling point or the boiling temperature of water, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that's good to know too. I'm learning all sorts of things about Celsius and Fahrenheit and how they relate to each other. And Mountain Mariner, believe it or not, was actually in my last video as well. You might have seen him waving on the boat. Not really. You probably couldn't see him. But he was on the vessel. I'm assuming you were at work anyhow. But the vessel that he works on was in my last video. And I believe that it was the one furthest to the left in the video when I was showing the boats that were out in the water in Valdez. But thank you for being here, Ed, also, by the way. And Chris says, trying to respect the rules, is it okay to post personal email addresses so people who want to share prep info can? If that's a no-no, then I completely understand. That's up to you. If you want to put your personal email address up there, that is completely up to you. I am not going to say no to that. That's use at your own discretion. So. And Rob over at Curmudgeon Inn says, it takes a bit to do what you need to get the land. If you did not do everything, they reduced the amount of land you got. Yes, it went from 160 down to 5 acres. So that was a big penalty to pay for not doing the things that were required to get the 160 acres to begin with. And Two Bear says it was 5 years to get the land. That makes sense for sure. And Rob is saying hello to Ed over at Mountain Mariner, who is also saying hello back to Rob. And Onto It Aussie says hi also to Mountain Mariner Off Grid, Alaska. And there is his channel link. So be sure to pay Ed a visit and tell him that Alone sent you. And Ed says, and hello to everybody else too. Well, thank you for that, Ed. I'm sure they appreciate it. And Clint is saying hello back. And so is Matt. And of course, Ed is saying hello back to both of you. Chris Watson says, that's a burning love. Oh my goodness. Shane Liddell says, yep, heard the same fire story. I feel sorry for her. Yes, it was really, really sad for sure. But I also feel sorry for everybody that was affected by the fire that came through and devastated the area. Steve's Woodworking says, that sounds fishy. Love letter. Nobody writes anymore. Maybe a love text. Yeah, but obviously she wasn't up with the times, it sounds like. Crumedge says, cluck, cluck, the chicken coop build-off winner to be announced this Friday with the Homestead. Here is the link to the live. Yeah, be sure to check out Rob's live stream. And it sounds like Nomi, the Homestead, will be on there too, which is pretty cool. Haven't seen Nomi on my live recently, but Rob, if you could throw up his channel link also, that would be greatly appreciated. And Deep Bay Homestead says evening to over at Ed, who says hello. Over at Mountain Mariner Homestead. Sorry about that. And Rob is also saying hello. And then there is Deep Bay Homestead's channel link. Appreciate that, Rob, for throwing that up. Be sure to pay them a visit. Annette says, I think something was wrong with the soil. My son bought almost all of my starts have died. Oh no. I was actually in my gardening video, I had actually edited out a part, but I had a soil testing kit so you could test the soil to see if it was, acidic or what the pH balance of it was. Alkaline or acidic is what I was trying to say. But I edited it out because I already know that the soil that I have is acidic just because of everything that I added into it. And I know that I need to add some lime and things like that to change the acidity. But it might also be that if you add in manure, I think I mentioned this in one of my lives too, that if you add in manure that you're buying at the hardware store or the, nursery, or that you picked up from a local farmer, a lot of times those have herbicides in them because they're trying to kill off the weeds. And then those herbicides, they get flushed through the animal. They don't get washed out as the manure ages, and then you put it in your garden, and then it winds up killing off the plants that you're trying to plant. So I hope whatever it is, though, that you get it figured out and that you have better success, because that stinks. Planting everything dying. Oh, it's a lot of money too to plant for sure. And Chris Watson says manufactured shortages and economic disruptions are part of the reset. Yes, I would agree with that for sure. I think that things that are happening to squeeze out um, people, really, to depopulate, if you will. That's how I look at some of the things that are happening in the news these days. But I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to deny that at all. Steve's Woodworking says New York eggs, they're probably injected them with you know what. Yeah, I worry about that too. I worry about all the food being tampered with. Renee Solon, how are you doing tonight? Renee says, hello, alone. Great to see you. Great work on the property. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Christina, Oklahoma, Ohio. How are you doing tonight, Christina? Christina says, hi, alone, and everyone from Ohio. So glad to see you in the comments again. And Gerard, how are you doing tonight? Gerard says, Annette, some manure is from feedlots full of salt. Oh, well, that's good to know too. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but that definitely makes sense. And Rob over at the Curmudgeon Inn says, I kept hearing something last night. In the end, I think it was the loon at the lake just being really, really loud. I can believe that one. I love the sound of loons, though. I think they're absolutely the best bird sound when you're out on the lake is the loon. Two Bear says, my ground cherries last a long time after they drop off the plant. I think you don't see them for sale because most people don't know what they are or how to use them. That makes sense. I guess, that definitely makes sense for sure. And Gerard says, peeps grow elderberry, comes back even if you cut it flat. Yes, I would love to get some elderberry plants here on the property. I love elderberry. I make elderberry syrup to get me through the cold and the flu season. And it's one of those plants that I think everybody should have on their homestead. So, but make sure you're getting the black elderberry. You want the dark black or bluish black berries. You don't want the red ones. The red ones have a little bit of toxicity to them, where the black ones do not. So if you're going to grow elderberry, grow the right kind for harvesting. And Rob is saying hello to Christina. Ira says, used to sell ground cherries when I sold at farmers markets. Um, they were big hit, as well as the squash blossoms I sold. Oh, squash blossoms. Deep fried squash blossoms sound awesome right now. I'm getting hungry. That bowl of ramen obviously wasn't enough to tide me over. Deep Bay Homestead says, the first time I saw fireweed plants was in videos from Alaska. I wonder if it's just a native to Alaska. It's beautiful. No, actually, they have fireweed also on the Pacific Northwest. If ever you go to Washington State, there's fireweed there as well. And I've seen fireweed in Colorado, but I think people have planted seeds. And that's how I was seeing it in Colorado. Tammy Sue says, that's funny, Annie. All you went through for just a mosquito. I was just laughing at that. Yeah, had a good laugh at myself this morning about it too. I was like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? And George says, well, get some min pins for backup to Clint for the Iditarod. That's hilarious. Raised in Alaska, great question about eggs. Hey, Raised, how are you doing tonight? So glad to see you again. And Deep Bay Homestead, Rob is saying, fireweed is in a number of places. I have even seen it in Vermont. Well, that is good to know also. Hello, Patricia Hunt. How are you doing tonight? Patricia says, hi, all from Kansas. So good to see you tonight, Patricia. And Rob is saying hello to Raised in Alaska. Deep Bay Homestead says to Rob, thank you for our link on this posting. You are most welcome. So glad to put it up for you guys. And Roger says, a skunk killed one of my chickens one night when I forgot to close the pen door. Ooh, that would not be pleasant. And I feel sorry for the chicken that got expired prematurely. But Alaska does not have skunks. That is one thing I'm very happy about. My parents had skunks at some of their previous homes, but the last home they lived in was at 9,000 feet in Colorado, and there were no skunks up there. It was like the skunks just didn't travel that high up in elevation. But luckily in Alaska, there are no skunks. Thank goodness. And there is Raised in Alaska's channel link for everybody. Be sure to pay them a visit and say hello. Renee says, any luck with job hunting? Well, I actually decided about a month or so ago to just make YouTube my full-time job. And up until recently with the whole electrical thing, I was thinking that that was going to stick, but now I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I might have to go get a temporary part-time job just to pay to have the house rewired and that line trenched. But I still have to get the electrician out here. I've got to call into them, and I'm hoping that they call me back here in the next day or so to get me a time set up to get out here and give me a quote on that. But so far, I have not had to get a job. Give me 1 second, folks. I'm going to look something up real quick while we're talking here, because as I'm sitting here talking to you, I am feeling uh, my foot shake underneath me, and I just want to see if there is an earthquake happening. So hopefully you can still see me, even though I am off camera or off the screen right now. But it doesn't look like there's any earthquakes being reported, but I am definitely feeling my my CPU underneath my foot is rocking. So that's interesting, but I'm not seeing anything else in the office moving, but I'm definitely feeling my not monitor, but CPU rocking. And Gerard says, wow to Sarah. I'm sure that's about the comments about being brave and what have you, or maybe it's about the Facebook. Chris Watson says, during the pandemic, I could not sell eggs fast enough, even with 70 plus birds. That's a lot of birds. Wow. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I do believe it, because people weren't going into the grocery stores, and I don't blame them for that at all. Gerard says, pray for next level for hoof and mouth disease lab in Manhattan, Kansas. If lab leak, no more beef, period. Used to be on Plum Island. Oh my goodness. Hoof and mouth disease. Yikes. I haven't heard about that for decades. I mean, that's something you hear about, you know, back in the 70s. That's not something you hear about these days. That's really scary. All the antibiotics and, you know, the over cleaning of things, I think has done more harm in the long run than it had done good. I mean, I'm not saying antibiotics are a bad thing, but I'm saying the overuse of antibiotics and the overuse of sterilization practices and things like that, just like the fungus that they're finding in hospitals that's infecting people and is resistant to fungicides. That's really scary. I'm not sure what the fungus does to somebody once they have it, but it is scary nonetheless. And Ed says, what do you call a one-legged hippopotamus? A hoppopotamus. Oh my goodness, I have a mosquito flying around in front of me too. A hoppopotamus. That's cute. And Paul Davis, how are you doing tonight? Paul says, good evening. A lot of work you have going on property. Takes a lot to whip a place into shape. This place needs a lot of work still. It's funny because, like I said, the more you do, the more you realize needs to be done. So luckily, I am making progress and things are looking good, but I keep thinking about all the other things that have to be done. It's like the list just keeps growing and growing and growing. And Gerard says, good one mount. Good one mount. For the hoof and mouth disease, I'm sure he's saying. Good one mount. Dixieland says to Matt, you could can it. So can all your beef and bring it up that way. That's true. I brought up all my dry goods. I packed them into my canning jars so it took up less space. And that way my jars also had something in them to kind of insulate them. And then I just stuck cardboard between each of the jars and put them in the original jar trays that you buy them in, and brought them up that way. So yeah, canning your meat would be a great way to get your canning jars up here and also all that meat that you have. And then it'll save you too, because meat is expensive up here as well, Matt. And Patty Jackson says, watching the wills, your story is impressive. How brave to go remote in Alaska. Well, thank you so much. Watching the wills is definitely the theme song of my move up here. You know, people saying I'm crazy for what I'm doing, but just watching the wills go by and loving life and being able to sit back and relax. So, and Gerard is saying to Roger that I'm not sure about Oh, about canning it, I'm sure. Sorry. I have to kind of guess sometimes what your comments are in reference to. So if I get it wrong, just ignore my wrong guess. But yeah, sometimes I can't follow through with the quick things because there's so many comments back and forth about different subjects. So apologize if I get it wrong. Two Bear says, I drill a row of 3/8 inch diameter holes in my pills about 3 inches from the bottom to allow water to drain out. I drill a hole about every 3 inches all the way around the pill. That's also good to know. I planted one time when I lived in an apartment, I planted climbing roses in trash cans, and I did the same thing. And I filled the bottom with plastic water bottles so that it allowed for some drainage, and then just set up trellises in front of my balcony and had those climbing roses climb it up. It was a great way to get climbing roses in an apartment and also provide some security because they had long thorns on them that were about half an inch long and super, super sharp. Gerard is saying thanks to Donna, and Deep A Homestead is saying thanks to Rob over Curmudgeon Inn. Matt is saying to Dixieland, I don't really have any time for that, sadly. I'll just give it to my siblings. They all live close. Well, at least somebody can use the meat, though. That's for sure. That's a good thing. And Chris Watson says Plum Island is quite the dangerous place. Like Maryland with Fort Detrick, Fort Ritchie, Aberdeen Proving Ground, and USDA Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. Yikes, sounds like quite the busy place with all that going on. Mrs. Smith, how are you doing tonight? Mrs. Smith says, hi, Alone. Love seeing all the progress that you are making on your homestead. Great job. Well, thank you, Mrs. Smith. Glad to see you in the chat as well. And Clint says to Ed over Mountain Mariner, you know she can't pronounce that word. I was just thinking about the last time when he was making a joke about hippopotamuses, and it took me forever to get that joke. It was only after I got off the live stream that I finally got it. Like, oh my goodness. My pronunciation is so off sometimes. Gerard said, what's a fake meat? BitChute had fake food, a story, fake shrimp, fake eggs. Yeah, I saw, I don't know if it was on a local news feed that was on YouTube Shorts, but there was lab grown chicken. And they said that it's coming from either cells derived from a chicken egg or from other lab created things, and then they grow this into this lab grown meat. I was thinking, no way would I eat that. But the problem is, you may not even know. You might be going to a restaurant and eating, chicken Alfredo or whatever, and getting lab grown meat that way. Um, you would never know unless they have to put out a disclosure, which they just don't do. And I know Ed's laughing at me. Ed laughs at all the things that I mispronounce. I think him and John put out words just to see if I can mispronounce them. That's John in Alaska, who also isn't here tonight, but at least I have a good sense of humor about it. Matt says, or Dixieland says to Matt, that is a nice thing to do, to give all your meat to your siblings. Gerard said that protein glue in fake meat is toxic microbes. Microbes. That's gross. The protein glue. That's not good. And Rob is saying hello to Mrs. Smith, and Clint is laughing at George. And Gerard says, Missouri here. Good to know, Gerard. Good to know. And blessings. Well, blessings right back at you, Gerard. And Hamad, see, here's another word I can't pronounce. Hagiomos. I totally messed that up, and I apologize. I know I did. Says, hello, I'm a fellow Copper Center person regarding plants and growing this summer. Many people are reporting a very bad growing season. I don't think there is any fix, just a bad season. Well, that is interesting. I'm wondering if it's because we're cooler this year than we had been in years past, or if there's another reason for it. And again, I apologize for messing up your name because I know that I did not do that any justice. And Beachcomber says, still bucketing down with rain in New Zealand, flooding everywhere. Oh my goodness. I hope you guys will get some relief from that soon. Yikes. Gerard says 85 degrees in Kansas City, Missouri. Pretty warm where you're at. And Mrs. Smith is saying hello to Rob over the Convention Inn. And Gerard says it is now sundown where he is at. And poor man says, my chickens are in coops with half-inch hardware cloth and have feeders and waters that just last for 4 days. And my yard has rope overhead, 8 feet up, crisscrossing from the eagles if I let them out in the daytime. Well, that makes sense. I've seen that before where people have, just crisscrossed lines going overhead to keep the birds from swooping down and getting them. Um, but I don't know. I'm still not sold on the idea of raising chickens myself. Considering I don't eat that many eggs, to me, it just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense for me to raise them. And I also don't really prefer chicken meat. I have chicken in the freezer, and I can never, every time I'm looking at what to pull out for dinner, I never ever think of pulling out the chicken. It's like once in a great while. And Tammy Sue says, East Coast here, and it rains almost every day. Not rain would be good. A little bit of rain every day would be good, but not all day, every day. That's for sure. New Zealand Prime Minister now at Harvard. That lady with parts. Oh my goodness. Another one of those. Another. Gerard says, Ardern, Jacinda Ardern. I don't know what that is. I assume that's her name, but I don't know. Rob says, coffee. I made a tasty frittata yesterday and it came out amazing. Ooh, a frittata sounds good too. You guys are making me hungry. George says he needs some rain there in Missouri. And Chris Watson says Maryland is in a 10-inch rain deficit this year. Yikes. So even though it's raining on the East Coast, it's obviously not raining as far north as Chris is in Maryland. A frittata is, how do you explain a frittata? Rob, hopefully you can explain it. It's like kind of like an omelet, but not an omelet, if that makes sense. Like you put all your vegetables down on the frying pan itself, and then you cover it with your egg mixture and fry it up, and then you slice it like a pie and eat it that way. At least that's my understanding of frittata. Maybe I've gotten it wrong. And Gerard said, Watson La Nina will leave the Northeast USA dry, buy hay if needed. Oh my goodness. Yeah. If the USA has another drought, severe drought, we could all be in trouble too, because it also means that the farmlands won't be able to feed their cattle for sure. And Rob says, I hope you got a bunch. I hope you got a bunch of fish. Nope. Nope, not a bunch. But you'll see what I did get for sure. I don't want to give it away. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get a ton. Not this time, anyhow, but I am going again soon. So, Ernie says, can you harvest a moose from your yard? Best meat in the world. Moose is absolutely delicious. Absolutely. And yes, if there's a moose that comes through, I can hunt directly off of my property. So that is a nice thing for sure. Last year, my contractor had harvested a moose right off of my property. So it's a good thing that I don't have to go far to do that. But unfortunately, the caribou don't come through my property, so I'll have to travel to where they are at. But it's not too far from where I reside, at least anyhow. And Rob says to Gerard, a mixture of eggs and other things baked in the oven. There you go. And Kiwi Bird, New Zealand, how are you doing tonight? Kiwi says, Gerard, isn't Harvard lucky to have it? We were just glad to see the back of her. Changed my name from Beachcomber. Oh, got you. Kiwi and Beachcomber, one in the same. Nice to see that. Paul Davis, how are you doing tonight? Paul says, my garden for the most part is growing slowly. Cool mornings in Tennessee. Even so, just doesn't seem to be a good season. Well, with that being said, for you in Tennessee and me here in the Copper River Basin, I am glad that I planted cool weather crops and not things that take high temperatures other than those ground cherries, because hopefully that means I will have a good growing season for the things that are cool weather. I even started my Brussels sprouts and my fennel, which normally you don't start until mid-season. Sorry, my flashlight on my phone just turned on out of the blue, which that's very odd. So I just shut it off. Caught my eyes, it turned on. Marla says, wondering if you have thought you'd get your shooting range constructed this year. Would be a super interesting video, but then all of your videos are so educational, fun, and inspiring. Thank you for what you do. Well, you're welcome, Marla. And I'm hoping I get it put in this year. So most of the bulldozing of the mound of dirt behind the cabin has taken place. But there is still, unfortunately, some saplings down in that area where I'd put the shooting range that need to be taken out before I can do that. But yeah, I'm hoping I get it put in this year. I'd love to get some new targets, metal targets to shoot at. So I don't have to constantly go down there and set up targets after I shoot something down, like the bottles that I was using in the last video where I shot. Deep Base says to Beachcomber, we are rainless for the last 4 hours. It's back later tonight and tomorrow after last week, pretty much just rain. So much rain. My goodness. Rob says, yeah, the news is horrid. That's why I am no longer a journalist. Yep, the news is bad for sure. It's like it's like tune in and you're looking for those factual stories. You want to get the facts. You want to know what's happening in your area. But a lot of times you just get rhetoric. And then, like we were saying earlier, there's no follow up to it. And you don't ever really get the feel good stories either. The good things that are coming out. It's all just bad. I quit watching years and years ago before my children were even born. I quit watching the news. And Tammy Sue's, I wonder if some of the sensationalized news is to distract from something that we really need to hear about. I think so. I think when something big happens in the news too, it's to, hey, look over here at this shiny object so you don't see what we're doing over here. Sleight of hand type trick with the news. Kiwi Bird says, Deep Bay sick to death of the rain and the army worm has desecrated the vegetable garden. Oh, that's not good. I'm not sure what an army worm is. I'm going to have to look that up. I've never heard of that before. I'm writing this down so I can remember. Oh, I think I figured out, if it's not an earthquake, I figured out what's making the cabin shake. It's the winds, because a great big gust of wind just came through and I felt the whole cabin move. Sarah says, that was my intention, and we'll send photos and mediate if necessary. Thank you very much for that, Sarah. I appreciate it. Regarding finding me some furniture off of Facebook Marketplace. And Clint says, you can't get real news from the mainstream media in the U.S. anymore, just propaganda and distractions. The one thing is that the mainstream media here in the U.S. is all owned by about 5 different corporations, and those 5 different corporations also own most of our food plants and grocery store chains like Walmart and what have you. And so it's like everything starts up here and then it all trickles down, but it all stems from the same place. So it's unfortunate because they basically rule the world, as the saying goes. And Kiwi says to Kermudge, very flash Chucky house you have built. I haven't seen Rob's chicken coop yet, so I need to check it out for sure. But Nomi's is pretty colorful too. So I'm gonna check them both out for sure on Friday night when they do their announcing the winner of who built the best chicken coop. Janie says, my favorite story is the Seattle-based shipbuilder who was given a short life expectancy, went to Orcas Island to live out his short days. Instead, he built Rosario Resort and lived 40 plus more years without stress. That sounds like what I'm hoping my life is like. Like, I hope moving here is going to lengthen my life, but also I could see living on Orcas Island doing the same thing. Any of the San Juan Islands up there off of the coast of Washington are absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. One of my favorite places to visit when I was in the lower 48 was Orcas Island, Lopez Island. All of those islands are absolutely breathtaking, and the drive to get up there and then the ferry rides to each one of them is incredible too. So I could see that would definitely take away the stress and hopefully make someone live a lot longer. Deep Bay says to Kiwi, yes, I heard about those worms, destructive. Oh my goodness, I really need to look up what these army worms are all about. Two Bear says, with all this chair talk, maybe I should move to Alaska and start a chair building business. Yeah, you could probably make a pretty penny making furniture up here because it is expensive for sure. And Liberty says, have you made pemmican? I have not made pemmican. Um, I might give it a try, but I've eaten pemmican and I ate it so much one summer with all my overlanding that I actually kind of burnt myself out on it. I remember looking at it one time going, I can't eat any more of this. Like I've had so much pemmican, but it's a good thing to make and it's a good thing to have on hand for emergencies, if nothing else. And there is Mountain Mariners Off Grid Alaska channel link for everybody. So be sure to pay Ed a visit. And George says, would Kenai be interested in coaching the Chihuahua Iditarod team? Probably not. He'd probably look at the Chihuahuas and think, oh, look, you brought me a buffet. He does not like other dogs, unfortunately. But I'll talk to him about it and tell him Chihuahuas are friends, not food. And we'll see how far that goes. Oh my goodness. Daisy and Ed's Alaskan Adventure says copper reds are fattier and travel less from the ocean and taste better. That explains a lot right there for sure. And Curmudge is laughing at George's comment. And Blue Ridge, Maine, how are you doing tonight? Blue Ridge says, when we travel to my dad's homestead, established in 1970, we have to carry sat phones. No way in hell is signal up there in the Yetna River. Yeah, so even here, the signal is not good. But yeah, the further out you go, for sure, the signal is not going to be. So what I've noticed is that my phone is from a local carrier here. My phone service, that is from a local carrier. I barely have signal at my cabin. If I move around to different areas in the cabin, I have no signal. If I'm out on the property, I really don't have good signal. And then most of the way along the Glen Highway, I don't have signal. But then the people who have AT&T, they have signal in the area. But then where I don't have signal, they have signal. And then where I have signal, they don't have signal along the Glen Highway and along the Richardson Highway. So it's kind of interesting that cell signal appears not good. But I do have a Garmin satellite phone as well. So I recommend that if anybody's going to be out overlanding or if you're coming, you're moving to Alaska or a remote part of any part of the country, to get a Garmin and activate it before you leave the area where you're going to have cell service. Because once you're without the cell service, it can't necessarily locate you. And if you haven't turned on your satellite phone before departing. So you got to start it before you depart. Liberty Can says, can you build a floating house on the water or do they require rights or permits or other requirements? That I don't know, actually. The lakes here freeze over really, really hard, so you wouldn't be able to keep it on a lake here. But I know there are people who have boats down in the ocean, down in the ports of, say, Valdez and what have you, all winter long. But it snows so much down there that they have boats sink every single winter. So I'm not sure that they would allow a floating home either, or a houseboat type situation, because the amount of snow just pushes everything under, unfortunately. So that's a good question, though, for sure. And Chris Watson says, there was a federal homestead program for Alaska during the Depression. There you go. And Alaska's Last Frontier says it is now 59 degrees in Wasilla. And there is Race in Alaska's channel link. Thank you for putting that up, Rob. Greatly appreciate it. And Mitchell says, great advice tonight and Q&As alone. Time well spent. Good night to all. Good night, Mitchell. Thank you for being here and appreciate the compliment. Two Bear says, shoot, I meant 1986 for the end of the Homestead Act. Thank you very much. I was out of school and thought about going to get my 160 acres, but I didn't. I spent a summer in Idaho instead. I know how that goes. I can't tell you how many times I thought about moving to Alaska and then for whatever reason didn't follow through, but I'm glad that I finally made that move for sure. It's the best decision I ever made was to get up here. And there is Alaska's Last Frontier Homesteads channel link, so be sure to pay Bill a visit. And Dixieland says hi to Ed over at Mountain Mariner. And there is Steve's Woodworking and Homesteads channel link as well, so be sure to pay Steve a visit if you could. And hi, Shannon. How you doing tonight? Shannon says, good evening alone. It's great you're getting a bigger channel. but I'm going to miss these more intimate Q&A streams. Have you thought how you will do in the future when it gets way too lengthy? I haven't given it a whole lot of thought. You know me, I just take things as they come. So not sure, but hopefully we can keep it going the way it is, and what have you. I do appreciate everybody that joins into the chat and asks the questions, and gives me a little insight into what's going on in your neck of the woods or in your world. Much appreciated on all of that for sure. So hopefully they do stay somewhat intimate. I think that's a great question though, Shannon. Thank you. And there is Nomi the Homie, so Gnomestead's Off Grid Alaska channel link. Be sure to pay Gnomestead a visit if you would. Thank you for doing that, Rob. And Rob is saying hello to Blue Ridge Marine. And there is Blue Ridge's channel link. So thank you for putting that up. And sorry I called you Blue Ridge Maine before, but it is Marine. And Rob is saying to Blue Ridge, most places at sell now. I'm not sure what that means. Or get cell service now, he's saying, most places. Chris Watson says, age your own manure and compost your own soil. I agree with that. Get some ducks, chickens, bunny rabbits, whatever you can, get your own manure going, and that way you know exactly what went into it. And Liberty Can says Georgia Guidestones. Oh yeah, those Georgia Guidestones, that was something else about the depopulation. I was kind of laughing when I saw somebody blew them up, because those Georgia Guidestones, if you don't know what they are, they had a set of rules for humanity written in a bunch of different languages on all sides of these stones. And it said something about the human population can never exceed 500,000 or 500 million or something like that. 5 million. I don't know what the exact number was, but it said a lot of things on there that were just like, I don't know, not good in my opinion. And I'm sure there were a lot of people who felt the same way. Very macabre, if you will. And hello, Alice. How are you doing tonight? Alice says, I'm with you alone. Depopulation for sure. Eastern Washington here. Well, I'm glad someone else agrees with me on what my thought process is. And I'm glad to see you here in the chat too, Alice. And Donna says, no, alone, you're not a conspiracy theorist. That's a true fact. Yep. I think some of it is, me just theorizing about different conspiracies, but I think some of it is truly based in fact as well. And Janie says, I bought a gallon of fish fertilizer yesterday. There was a $26 difference between two stores. Ooh, that's a big difference. Yikes. The Alaska fish fertilizer, I had used that back in Colorado, and that stuff really works, by the way. So if anybody's looking for a good fertilizer there, that is one that I can definitely attest to. And Chris Watson says to Liberty, the Georgia Guidestones. Yep, exactly. There is Alaska Cut the Cords channel link for everybody, so be sure to check them out. And Matt says the conspiracy theorists have been more right than wrong these days. I agree. And Donna Heaton says, hi, sis, to Alice Cohen. Nice. And Rob is saying to Matt, right? And I am going to try to pronounce your name again, and I'm sure I'm going to mess it up. Hagiosmos. Hopefully I said that right. Where was this fire? As to conspiracy, it is not anymore. It is real and happening. I have a good laugh. People out in the Copper River Basin in general do not trust the government. Nope. I think a lot of us in Alaska don't trust the government. That's another reason why we moved here, to get a little further out from all of the intrusive rules, regulations, and anything else that they're trying to put on place on people in the lower 48. And like I always tell people, Alaska is the last place to have freedom. We still have a lot of the freedoms here that other places in the United States are lacking these days. Rob is saying that he loves elderberry. Elderberry, like I said, is one of my favorite plants. And Kiwi says to Chris Watson, you're quite correct about the plant shortages. Our local nurseries has returned all soil, topsoil, and seedlings due to army worm invasion. There are rumors they have been deliberately added. Oh my goodness. Yikes. That's not good, because that means even the homegrowners' gardens are out. And how do you eradicate that when they're in the soil? Can you plant things like marigolds or nasturtiums to get rid of them? Can you add beneficial nematodes to get rid of them? How do you rid your soil of these things once the eggs and the worms are there? That is really scary. Ira says, even elderberry flowers are edible and leaves used for teas. Do you have any watermelon berries nearby your homestead? I do not have any watermelon berries near my homestead. But, it's funny because um, just down the road from me in either direction, the terrain is incredibly different. I know some of my neighbors have blueberries, native blueberries on their property. I have no blueberries on my property. They also have other plants that I have never seen before, and I can't even begin to identify that I don't have on my property. So, who knows? There could be watermelon berries just across the road from me, and I wouldn't know it. So anything's possible. And Heather says, oh, by the way, hi, Heather. Heather says, greetings alone and all who support this encouraging independent woman. Hopefully, get new glasses tomorrow to help me through this transitioning time of cataract surgeries, hence my reduced video interaction. Well, I do hope that your eyesight is improving. I hope that your surgeries have gone well and your healing is a success. But I do appreciate being in the chat nonetheless. And I know that you're always watching and listening, even if you're not in the chat, Heather. But I greatly appreciate seeing you here tonight for sure. And Matt says, we have fireweed in Utah too. Yep. So I think it's pretty well spread, it seems like. Shannon says, I know it takes time, but I'm still waiting on these cooking videos. I eat mainly Asian diet, and I've seen you enjoy that too. I definitely do enjoy Asian food for sure. And I do know that I need to get back to the cooking videos. In fact, I was editing today. So hopefully I'll have one out for you by next weekend, if not sooner. So I know I'm really late in getting some of these cooking videos out for sure, but I appreciate your patiently waiting. Chris Watson says Georgia Guidestones was their arrogance in telling us their plans. Exactly. As the saying goes, they put it all right out in the public eye. They don't hide anything. Crumudge says no skunks and no possums except Grubby that they found and trapped in Homer, and then they found she had babies. Well, it makes you wonder how many more babies she'd had before they found her. Oh my goodness. Dixieland Homestead says some farmers use grazon and grazon. I'm not sure what that is. And the animals eat out of the fields, and then they buy hay that is full of it. It'll contaminate your soil. Yep. So it's obviously like an herbicide of some sort. That's not good. Annette says, I just went and bought some more soil at a different store and a different brand. Need to uh get started over. Yep. Unfortunately, sometimes that's all you can do, and that's really sad. Matt says, my current house rocks frequently, but it's because of Union Pacific track being like 200 feet away. That would do it. That would definitely shake the house to its core for sure. Rob over at Convention Inn says it can take a few minutes to register the shaker. Well, let me see if anything's come up yet. Let me refresh the screen. But I think it was the wind. Yeah, there's nothing on here, luckily. Let's see here. Diana, how are you doing tonight, Diana? Diana says, hi all. Had to clean up after a sick Sherpie who has been blowing her groceries for 3 days now. Vet visit tomorrow. Poor puppy. Oh my goodness. I hope it turns out to be nothing and that she recovers quickly. That is sad. Poor little doggy. Shannon says, I am slowly renovating an older family home in Canada and it's expensive enough. Not sure if you have covered this already, but what is the average cost of a contractor per hour there, if you can say? It depends upon the contractor and the amount of work that they're doing. But shoot, I don't even know. I haven't even figured out per hour because they bid by the job. So yeah, I don't think I could answer that question because I haven't broken it down by the hour and I've not actually asked them what their hourly rates are. I'd have to go back and look at some of the quotes that I got and see if they have their hourly rates put in there. But I would think that it was, for some reason, I want to say well over $100 an hour, and maybe even more than that, maybe close to 200. But I don't know, because I've been paying by the job. So, but it is hard to find contractors out here. I will tell you that much. It is definitely hard to find qualified people. It's hard to find people who want the work, or it's hard to find people who aren't already booked up because of the fact that they are good and are willing to take on the work. So that is one thing here. It's hard to find good help. Paul says, "Good night, everyone. Just thought I'd check in to say hi." Well, thanks, Paul. I hope you sleep well, and I appreciate you being here tonight. Diana saying hi to Rob over the Curmudgeon Inn, and Dixieland is saying hi to Diana, who is saying hi back. And Deep Bay Homestead says to Shannon, "We just spent 2 years having a house built in Ontario. It didn't take us long to not pay contractors by the hour." Yeah, by the hour is hard because, and I think that's one of the other reasons why I paid by the job, was because no matter how long it took, the pay wasn't going to increase. Because one of my fears was, like, when I had the roof put on and all the extra work that he did, that if he was charging me by the hour, he could milk it for sure. But if it was a set price, and then the only fluctuating thing would be incidentals, then at least I knew what my finished price was going to be, and I wasn't worried about how long it took. And he even said, if it took more days than he estimated, that would be on him, not on me, for that time. So yeah, that makes sense for sure. Diana says or Deep Bay says to Diana, "Hope she feels better soon and it's not anything serious." I agree. That is so scary, especially that's been going on for days now. Kiwi says, the thought of lab grown meat makes me sick to my stomach. It's not natural, and I don't trust the science anyway. I don't either. I think it's creepy. And Liberty Can says, "Are there rental places in that area for Bobcat and backhoe or front loader?" Glen Allen Hardware does rent an excavator, but that's the only place that I know that has any equipment for rent. Other than that, it's just finding somebody in the area who has the heavy equipment and will come out and do whatever it is that you need done on your property. So luckily, I was able to find somebody in the area who had a bulldozer. um, but yeah, until I found them, I didn't even know how I was going to get somebody out here. I thought I was going to have to call somebody in from one of the neighboring communities, just like my contractor who built my roof actually came in from Wasilla. He traveled all this way last summer, which is why he stays in the bunkhouse when he's out here, because putting him up in a hotel just was not feasible. And Donna is saying, "Welcome to Gerard." By the way, sorry, I missed that comment. Rob says, some meats sold or held together with certain glues to look like other meats. That's gross. I don't want to eat anything that's made to look like something else. I just want the natural thing, which is part of the reason, to be honest with you, that I bought side of beef from a local rancher. I didn't want to take the chance with what's going on with the lab grown meats, and all the contamination and the things that they're injecting into the animals these days and what have you. So I don't know. It's just too much to take in and to think about, and it turns my appetite. And Shannon says to Deep Bay, "Yes, I agree. I wish I could do it all, but it's not primary home. And certain things, it's much faster and less tools to buy. Lol, it's crazy." Yeah, getting work done and paying somebody to do the work, I think, is so expensive, but yet it's cheaper or sometimes better quality than I can do myself for sure. I know, I was being told when I first bought my cabin to just repair the roof myself, but there's no way I could have done this roof. If I had a small shed-like home, like the bunkhouse, I probably could have done that one, but nothing this size could I have ever done for sure. Diana says to Deep Bay, "Thank you. She already has epilepsy, so I'm praying it's nothing serious. She seems pretty peppy, even after liquid, everything from both ends. So gross. Poor puppy. Oh my goodness. I know I've said poor puppy probably like 8 times already, but I feel sorry for her and for you. That's never a good thing when your dogs are sick like that." Rob is saying to Deep Bay, or he's put up Deep Bay's Homestead's channel link, so be sure to pay them a visit if you would. And I am not even beginning or going to begin to try to pronounce that, Ed. Sorry, not happening. Nice try, though. Ed says, which ironically means fear of long words. Woo! Yeah, you got that one right for sure. Deep Bay Homestead said to Diana, we had a black lab. It's never good when they feel off. I agree. And there is Ed the Jokester's channel link. So be sure to pay Ed a visit and leave him some very confusing comments if you would. And tell him Alone told you to do so. Deep Bay, Diana is saying, we have 2 German Shepherds. Our boy Roger is totally fine, but Greta is definitely not good. Oh, that. Well, I'm glad that Roger, that Ruger is doing well, but I hope Greta gets better and that it isn't anything neurological or, something that's going to require lots of medical treatment to get her through. And poor man says that I look very pretty tonight. Thanks. I appreciate that. I feel like I look tired. Every time I look in the screen, I can see that it looks like I have a bag under this eye. But I think it's just a shadow. And Deep A saying to Diana, well, hopefully good news tomorrow. Yes, fingers crossed. And there is Poor Man's channel link. So be sure to pay Poor Man a visit if you would. And Diana is saying thank you to Deep Bay. Rob says, sorry, I just clicked off of his comment there. It says, I share canned moose with Adam and Phyllis on Friday nights live. Oh, lovely, lovely. That's awesome. I got some canned moose last year from Homestead, and it was absolutely delicious. And I'd gotten a little bit of moose meat from my contractor when he was here. And I wish I had shown you guys a recipe that I prepared with it, but it was some of the best meat that I've ever eaten. I love moose for sure. And Haji Amos says, actually, you cannot harvest a moose on your property. Ooh, that is good to know. Read the Fish and Game rules. There are areas to hunt in the Copper Basin. Look at the hunt maps too. Will do for sure. Thank you for passing that information along. I appreciate that because last thing I want to do is get in trouble for poaching. I definitely don't want to do that. Curmudgeon says, my plants in the greenhouse are doing well. That's awesome. And Tammy Sue says, good night. I'm for an old lady to sleep, or time for an old lady to sleep. Don't say bye when Annie reads this because I'm already gone. Then I won't say it. Poor man says, so Deep Bay, are you on Vancouver Island? And Heather says to Gerard, what a disaster having that which adjourn in any possession of spreading her evil. Look at what she's done in destroying my beautiful land of my birth. I'm an Aussie now. Not much better here in Oz. Yikes. Not good that we have such political figures that just want to do harm to our beautiful countries for sure. And Deep Bay says to poor man, no, in Ontario. And Clint says bye to Tammy. And Tammy Sue rescues. Rob says, sorry, I missed you. And there is her channel link. So be sure to pay Tammy Sue a visit. And Diana says, Alone, we've started looking at properties in Minnesota and Wisconsin. I'm not jazzed about the nasty winters, but my husband has promised to keep it warm for me. There you go. There you go. You can't beat a deal like that. But I can understand if you're not one for cold, then moving to colder areas is definitely difficult. And Minnesota and Wisconsin get a fair amount of snow too. So if you have to drive anywhere, that could be an issue also. But I hope you find the perfect property no matter where you move. Poor man says, my cabbage plants are getting eaten by big time. Probably won't get any out of them. The baking soda spray doesn't help. Oh, that's not good. Do you know what's eating them, though? That's the big concern. Dixieland says to poor man, try putting ground cinnamon around them. And Rob says, I'm working on the chicken coop video now. Awesome. That sounds fantastic. And Steve Miller, how you doing tonight? Steve says, what a range. So happy for you. What make is your handgun? I think we need to get you on a little bigger bulldozer. Keep up the good work. So the gun that you normally see in my videos, it is a 357 snub nose, but I also have 2 different 10 millimeters that I carry with me. One is an F&N and one is a Smith & Wesson. And then those are the handguns that I normally carry around the property. I also carry a 38 special when I go into town. So, Redneck Prepper, how are you doing tonight? I haven't seen you in a little bit. So glad to see you again, though. And Redneck says, what are the beef prices like there? I honestly couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I have a grocery video. So the last grocery haul video that I did a few months back, I showed what the prices are for a whole range of things from fresh produce, meats, eggs, dairy, things like that, for not only what it is in Wasilla, but Glen Allen, and then also up in Barrow. And it was quite shocking at what the prices were. Some of the prices were unexpectedly cheaper in some areas than others, and vice versa. So, you can find my full catalog of videos. There's a playlist that I have that says entire series in order. And it would probably be April or May when that video came out. I just don't know the number off the top of my head. It's like number probably 70 maybe, or something right around there. And Rob says to Rick, depends upon what cut you want. That's true too. And Antoadasi says, lol, I plan to be like you alone, buy a place debt free and retire early and live on my super super think, but the Aussie government keeps lifting the minimum retirement age. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's pretty high here too. I can't, collect Social Security for a good number of years, which is unfortunate, and hopefully it's still there when my time comes, for sure. But I am so happy for you that you were at least planning to make that move and get out on your own and make the best of life, because I think everybody should have that opportunity. Rob says, we are rooting for Team Outreach 22. They are a group to help prevent and support veterans against suicide for the next Iditarod. That is awesome. That is so fantastic. Rooting for Team Outreach 22. I am going to write that down as well, because I'm sure I will forget that. Team Outreach 22 Iditarod. Thank you for that, Rob. I will look them up and I'll be rooting for them as well, because I think that is an important thing that we all need to do, is to support our veterans for sure. They fought for us, and the least we could do is fight for them in return. And Liberty Can says, are there a lot of churches up there? There are a lot of churches up here. Alaska is a very religious state. It's a very conservative state, and there are churches almost around every corner, so to speak. Just in this little area where I live, I think there are 3 or 4 churches, for an area that doesn't have but about 300 people in it. So there are a lot of churches, in my opinion, at least. It seems that way. And Anto Adasi says, oh, for a stress-free and no job life, right? I wish it on everybody. That is my goal for everybody, to be stress-free and to not have to slave away at a job, unless you really love your job, that is. But again, somebody's got to do stuff. So I guess we can't all be retired, but that's what we have youth for. Diana says to Antaradasi, my German friend said that the retirement age there is going up to 70. What's yours there? My husband and I are going to sell our expensive house here in Colorado and buy a cheaper place. And Rob over at Curmudgeon Inn says, BC, Canada has a bunch of floating homes. Yes, that is true. In British Columbia, they do, for sure, because it's more temperate down there than it is along some of the coast here in Alaska. And Matt says, I wish I would have planned to move up full-time sooner. The reason I didn't turned out to be pretty disappointing in the end. So no time like the present, which is now. I agree. I feel like I could have done so much more had I gotten up here sooner. But I'm just glad that I got up here when I did. And so for anybody who's hesitating or thinking, I just need to do this, or I just need to do that, or, after this happens or whatever, just realize there is no time like the present, like Matt said. And I just encourage everybody to make the leap of faith, and have faith in yourself. And of course, make sure you have the finances to do it. But yeah, I just wish everybody could do it, sooner rather than later. And Antaradasi says to Diana, it depends on what you're born. It depends on what year you were born. For me, it's now 67, but they're trying to make it 75 across the board. 75, holy moly. Yikes. And Rob over at Convention Inn is saying to Matt, just do it, bro. Hurry it up and get back up here, bro. Yes, hurry, hurry. I agree. Steve's Woodworking says, so glad I found your channel. It has been a hoot watching you grow as well as your channel. Cheers. Well, thank you, Steve. I think the same for you guys also. I love you guys, and I appreciate everything that you guys do also. So Steve's Woodworking also has a live stream on Saturday nights, which sometimes I'm able to attend. I'll probably be on his live streams more in the winter months than I am during the summer months, just because there is so much going on. But I love Steve's channel. I think Steve has the most down to earth perspective on life out of anybody. And he and his friends are all a hoot to listen to. So uh, check them out if you get the opportunity. Daisy and Ed say, you could always get a job reading audiobooks. You can do it from home. You have a soothing voice. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I think sometimes my voice might be just a little bit too soothing because when I'm editing my videos, I put myself to sleep. As I'm listening to the playback, sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah. And before I know it, I'm passed out in the chair and listening to my own videos. So uh, that's funny. Sorry. I laugh at myself a lot too. And Jerry says, on your recent trip to Valdez, I saw poles along the side of the highway. Can you tell me what they're for? They are to guide the snowcat as it's plowing the highway there. So the passes get about 20 feet of snow on average in the wintertime. And those poles that you see that come up and then they're shaped like a hook or an upside down L, they actually have a radio transmitter in it that tells the snowcat where the side of the highway is so that they don't wind up driving off the highway and they can go along. Unfortunately, what those poles cannot do is tell the snowcat driver if there is a car stuck in the snow underneath all those feet and feet of snow. So they're to guide the snowcats along. And you'll see them along the Glen Highway as well as further up on the Richardson Highway as you're going up towards Fairbank out of the Copper River Basin. And I'm sure, there might be some on the Parks Highway. I don't know, but at least these 3 locations that I know of have it also. And Onto It Aussie says, and that was a great question, by the way, Jerry. Thank you for asking that. Diana says to Onto It Aussie, I'm planning to pay off the few bills we have with the sale of this house, then pay cash for the new one. We're applying for disability for my husband to pay the monthly bills. Well, I hope you get it because having that little bit of income coming in can make all the bit of difference. I mean, that's one of the reasons, like I said, why I started a YouTube channel was to make sure that I had some income coming in at any point, no matter what, because I knew that my job was going to be ending. I just didn't expect it to happen when it did. And I'm very thankful that I started this channel. I have that little bit of residual income. And so if you guys can get the disability for your husband's injuries to help you guys out after you sell your home and pay off all your bills, I wish you all the luck in doing so because it will make your life a lot easier. And hi, right back to you, Alice, and right back to everybody. Love to everyone on here for sure. And Onto It Aussie says, we can't get a welfare here if we have any savings at all. You can't get any welfare if you have any savings. I know here that disability as well as welfare that you can't make over like, at least this is what it used to be. I'm sure the numbers have changed. That you can't get those things if you make over $600 a month or for an individual, and who knows what it is for a household. But the laws here, the regulations for getting disability and what have you are really, really strict here as well. So that's unfortunate. Matt says to Rob, I'm trying, bro. Someone keeps putting off the deed signing. Oh, that is not good. Hope you get your property soon, Matt, for sure. Liberty says, no longer conspiracy, it's reality. Yep, I agree on many, many of the subjects for sure. Rob says to Matt, I hear you, bro. We dealt with that as well. Luckily, when I bought my property, I didn't have to deal with that. There was delays in getting everything signed. It actually went like clockwork. The only thing that I wish that I had done different, was that I had paid for my home all at once. In other words, that I didn't put down, well, I guess I don't really wish that. I was thinking that if I'd paid for it in advance, then I wouldn't have had to go through the title company, but actually I still would have had to go through the title company. But getting the title work, getting the final deed and everything like that for my property took a very long time. In fact, I think it was almost a year from the time that all the paperwork was signed until I got the final copies back from the title company. It was a pain waiting for them to show up, though, for sure. And Dixieland says, I don't think too many people trust the government at all. Probably not these days. I think even no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you probably have some issues with the government. So it's, yeah, if they say they're here to help, run, because that's the last thing that they're really there to do, is how I look at it. Diana says, my husband has a prosthetic leg and a ton of hardware in his back. I'll probably work part-time someplace for mad money, but otherwise I'll be functionally retired at 52. That is awesome. I am so happy for you and your husband, Diana, to be retired, that is, but not happy that he has all those injuries and all that hardware in him. That's unfortunate. Um, and I hope that you guys have a wonderful retirement, though, no matter where you wind up. Onto It Aussie's channel link is on the screen. Thank you for that, Rob. I appreciate it. And I'm sure they do too. And Dixieland is saying hi to Heather. So thank you for that, Dixieland. And there's Dixieland Homestead's channel link, so be sure to pay them a visit as well. And Kiwi says planted marigolds and those plants which repel insects, but they were gone next morning. I believe copper wire used in boosting crops actually helps control the invaders. We'll try that. Yeah, I'm actually interested to know if the copper clad steel poles that I put outside of the garden are going to make a difference. I know Deep South Homestead, yeah, it was Deep South Homestead. They just did a video about using copper wire in the garden. And I still have to watch the video. I put it in my save for watch later, but that might be one to check out. So Deep South Homestead is who just did that. And Diana says, Onto It Aussie, I wish I could share photos here. I tried posting a link to photos, but they get deleted. I'm going to check out your page tomorrow. Oh, yeah. So that is one other thing that I should tell everybody is that you can't post links to external sites on YouTube. YouTube doesn't like that. They won't allow the external links, unfortunately. So, but Diana, if you send me the link in an email, then I can put it in the description of my video if you want, and or I can try to post it for you some other way, if you wanted to share those photos. So that's a way that we could do it, though. Um, and Redneck Prepper is saying hi to Steve's Woodworking, Stalker Steve, my friend. And Antonossi says thanks to Rob over at Curmudge. And Steve is saying hey to the Redneck Prepper. Poor man says going to have so many blackberries this year. Have to have them all over the back fence and front too. I am jealous. I understand blackberries don't do very well here in Alaska. I'm not sure if it's the soil or the temperatures or what, but I love blackberries. I think blackberries are some of the best berries out there. So good on you for having those. Deep Bay Homestead says to Diana, my 19-year-old has a huge amount of hardware in his back also. Not fun, is it? Yeah, I bet. That's sad. I really hate to hear when people have been injured and that they're having to deal with lifelong consequences of their injuries. That's always a sad thing to hear. But I hope that he is doing okay despite his injuries. Same for Diana's husband as well. And Redneck Prepper says, hell, call me Redneck. uh, and Curmudge's put up Poor Man's channel link for everybody. Be sure to check him out on YouTube, and Steve's Woodworking as well right there. And hello, James. How are you doing tonight? James says, good evening from Willow, Alaska. Well, good evening to you, James. Glad to see you in the chat. Onto An Aussie says, thanks, Anna. I'm just a mom sharing what I get to do. Get what I do to get by these hard times. Yep, I know how that goes, but we appreciate it nonetheless on Torasi for sure. And Rob is saying hello to James from Chase, Alaska. And James is saying hello back to Rob. Sorry about that. James says lab grown meat starts from cancer cells. Do not eat it. Oh, that is scary news right there. That is not good. Alice says you don't even want to know what is in a McDonald's burger. Nope, I do not. I watched that documentary. Oh, I don't know what it was called, but it was a guy who ate McDonald's for like 30 days straight. I could not even drive by a McDonald's without having my stomach turn after watching that documentary and reading, the things or hearing the things that they put in their private emails back and forth regarding the things that were in their food. I was just like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. Nope, I'm good. Thank you. So, yeah, don't want to know. Raised in Alaska says, great chat this evening. Thank you. You're welcome, Raised. I appreciate you seeing you here again. So thank you very much for that. James says, I have a bobcat. There you go. Anyone need a bobcat? James has one. James, are you offering it up for hire? And Diana says, love to Onto It Aussie. And Alaska's Last Frontier says, I have an excavator. Just saying. That's true. Bill has an excavator and he is actually looking for work on doing that because that's what his employment will be after he gets up to his new homestead full time. So be sure to check out Alaska's Last Frontier Homestead if you're needing some work done. And James says human meat in McDonald's. I've heard that rumor. I don't know how, valid that is, but either way, gross. Rob says, Adam from Alaska Cut the Cord works for a place that does rentals. Oh, that's true too. Yep. He works for not Crowley, but Fisher Fuels, who does rentals also. Yep. I'd forgotten about that. And Rob is saying Soylent Green to James. Oh, nasty. James says, I take care of my mother, but will be off grid when my job's done here. Fantastic. Well, I wish you all the success in getting to that off grid life. And also, I wish you all the best in taking care of your mom. That's kudos to you for doing that for sure. Two Bear says, I'm falling asleep. So good night, Miss Alone, and everybody else. As always, it was very enjoyable. Well, thank you, Two Bears. I appreciate it. And with that being said, I'm going to start signing off tonight as well because it's about 3 minutes to half past the hour. But I do want to thank all of you for being on here tonight and joining me in the chat. And I want to say thank you to Rob over at Curmudgeon Inn for moderating the chat tonight. Greatly appreciated. And Deep Bay Homestead, thank you again for being here again. It's very nice to see you and Onto It Aussie as well as Two Bears who just signed off. And also, I would like to say thank you to George and to Clint. And also, I would like to say thank you to James, even if you just did get here at the last minute of the chat. I thank you for that nonetheless. And James says, I think you can apply for a permit to shotgun a moose in your yard in October. Well, good to know. I'll look into that as well. And poor man, thank you for being here as always. I greatly appreciate that. My computer is running really slow at the moment. Jerry, thank you for being here. And, anybody who I haven't mentioned yet, I do want to thank you all for being here because without you guys, this chat wouldn't happen. So thank you, Annette. I appreciate you being here as well as Dixieland and Steve's Woodworking. So with that, I'm going to say goodnight and I'll catch you guys again on the next one. Please be safe and take care.